Friday, April 10th. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of That's What G Said podcast. Got a heavy episode of wrestling and racing for you today. So we're going to get things kicked off right away. We're going to talk horse racing, some Gulfstream for Friday, some Oaklawn for Friday. Then we're going to talk some Gulfstream for Saturday. Then we bring on Emily Gullikson to talk some Oaklawn for Saturday. We talk about the stakes races there, and then an allowance race on the undercard that was kind of an interesting one. Then we have an interview with Dawn August where we recap Wrestlemania. We go through every match on both nights. We bring in Chad Cooper to talk Monday Night Raw, NXT, and All Elite Wrestling. So kick back and enjoy as we get set for some Friday racing. Get your past performances out. Going to go to Gulfstream Park first. And I'm going to go to the fourth race for the first Gulfstream play. And we'll go to the number 2, Teenage Kicks. I think she's going to have some speed from the inside. She showed some speed last time out on February 2nd. And she was inside. She was chasing. She was a couple lengths off. She was in second, third. She just couldn't get to the runaway winner that day. And you know, sometimes when you're in chase mode like that, it's not the easiest spot. Now you get the drop in class. Joelle jumps aboard the 2 Teenage Kicks that's used in all exotics. And we'll make a win wager in that fourth race at Gulfstream Park if we can get, a good price. We don't want to get too short of a price. Let's go to race number 6. And I'm going to go to the 7 in here, Starship Apollo. You know what? He's just drawn really well. He can sit. He loves to win races. I think this is a really good spot for him. I think it's a place where you can maybe play against the Take Charge dude in here because there's a lot of speed signed up to his outside. I think, with Travie Boy in here, with Jersey Joe B, with Killa D, they all have the opportunity to make it at least difficult for Take Charge dude who's got the rail. And Starship Apollo could sit the kind of trip that should work out really well in that spot. So 6th race to number 7, Starship Apollo. In the 7th race, that's the start of your late pick 4. The 11's going to be really tough in there, so if you're playing any pick 4s, but make sure to include the 6, Magic River. She had a brutal start last time out. She was 10 off, and she really got going late. She moved to the inside. She just missed second, and she's going to have to be so far back. This is the lowest spot for her. Give Magic River a long look in there. If you want to go a little deeper, maybe the 12 and the 8 would be a couple others I would include. But I have a 6 and 11 on kind of a tier above themselves. And then in race number 8, the 5. This is kind of a fun little race. Super Cute was impressive in her debut win. 4 Grands was impressive. Finding Fame was impressive. And 4 Graces was impressive. I figure those will take the bulk of the money. I like Finding Fame the most. She was able to settle inside. She was about 5 lengths off, save some ground. She has to angle around 5 wide and then in between, and then she has to hold off a late challenge. It was a pretty professional effort for a barn who's not necessarily known for their first out success, and it was at an in-between distance, 6.5, which is not easy to win. 10th place finisher that day has come back to win a maiden special weight. Now you get the stretch out. Finding Fame, I have, of those 4, I have on top. And I think Super Cute was pretty impressive in that debut win and did it from the rail. So, did it from the rail going a mile. I have 5-1-8-4. I mean, no knocks on 4 Grands, no knocks on 4 Graces. I just prefer Fighting Fame of them, and I think it's a good spot. Try to get win number 2. And then the 9th race, nothing cute. The 3, Positive Phil. Probably going to be pretty tough in there. So, the 10th race, our man Joe is going to take a ton of money. So, maybe you play some late pick 4s where you can key in on one of these spots. But for me, the plays today are 4th race, number 2, Teenage Kicks. 6th race to number 7, Starship Apollo. 7th race to number 6, Magic River. 8th race to number 5, Finding Fame. That's Friday for Gulfstream. Let's get to Oaklawn for Friday, April 10th. Get your past performances out. Not in love with the Oaklawn sequence. Much prefer the Saturday. stuff at Oaklawn Park, which we'll get to in just a minute. But I do have a couple plays in the 8th race. We're going to go to the number 2, and as you can hear me flip-flopping my papers all around. The 7th race starts your late pick 4. I thought So Alive, was going to be really tough in there. Victory Element, maybe if you're looking for a little more of a price. The 11, I thought the 5 is interesting with a little bit of backlash, and then the 12. So depending on how you're playing a pick 4 or something like that, that might be. Those are some of the horses I would use. In the 8th race, the 2 Strong Flag I really like. I liked the way that filly was able to step forward, and she's obviously on the way up. And then the price to maybe use in some of the late exotics is in the 9th race, and that's the number 7, Petrov, who's going to cut back, who's going to drop in class, and I think this is a really, really nice spot for him at a big price. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets bet a little bit. I think that morning line's a little high, but make sure to throw the number 7, Petrov, into your exotics in race 9 there at Oaklawn Park. So, best of luck on Friday at Gulfstream and Friday at Oaklawn. Let's get you to Saturday. We'll start on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Let's get to race number 5. That's going to be our first play. We'll just have a couple plays throughout the card. First play in the 5th race, the 9 Champagne Lady, who should really improve moving to the grass here. She's a full assist to the Grade 1 Hollywood Derby winner Motown, who loved the grass. And this one will go 2 sprints to a round stretch out. She's going to be sitting closer, and I expect her to improve in here. This isn't the strongest race in the world either. She doesn't have to be great to beat this group. The number 9, Champagne Lady. Let's go to Gulfstream, race number 6, and let's go to number 10, Victory Town. Victory Town had a slow start. He was 6 lengths off. He recovered well. He was sitting nicely on the inside. He shot through an opening. Then he angles around 3 wide. He flattens out a bit late, but that was his first start from since November, and his rest race was on March the 14th. He should get a lot out of that, and he's finally going to put 2 together. I'd be shocked if he's half his morning line. If he is, we'll make a nice win wager on the number 10, Victory Town. 2 races later, in race number 8, again the number 10, we're going to go to Fugitive, who was 4th in the same race that Victory Town was 3rd. Fugitive had a slow start. He was 9th of 10. He angled to the outside with a nice 3-wide bid. He closed well in the stretch. He was not far out of 3rd behind Victory Town, who we like earlier on the card. I think that's a strong race, and I think they have an opportunity to win a couple races on that Saturday card. In the 10th race at Gulfstream, the number 8, Bachelor's Bait, got shuffled a little bit on the inside, then sat nicely after, and was able to angle around 3 wide like a pro. That was her debut at Laurel. She won nicely. And if you look at this race, yeah, she might not have the speed figure, and she might not have been quite quick enough in her debut where it looks like someone on paper maybe better. She could fall into a really nice spot. She has the opportunity to improve, making her first start as a 3-year-old. I think she could fall into a really nice trip here in race number 10 at Gulfstream Park. And then the 12, just a horse to maybe throw in some of your late exotics if you're playing them. I thought the 5 Violent Times could sit a really nice trip in here. Going to go second off. She moves back to the dirt. She's run well on the track here, on the main here at Gulfstream Park. She has that speed, but she can sit right behind if need be. So that's the number 5, Violent Times. Make sure to include in all of your exotics. Next up, I'm going to talk some Oaklawn for Saturday. So let's go to an interview with Emily Gullikson. We'll talk about the big races at Oaklawn with her, and then afterwards I will recap my plays. Enjoy Emily Gullikson talking some Oaklawn. Just wanted to remind you about one of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast, Sarah Candle Company. Visit sarahcandles.com, CERA candles.com. Use the promo code GINO for 10% off of your entire purchase. These are all natural soy wax candles. They burn longer. They are better for you than the candles out there that have that traditional paraffin wax. I know the people from this company personally. I've grown up with them my whole life. They love candles, and the goal was to have an affordable candle that everyone can enjoy. Use that promo code GINO. My favorite is Fresh Roses. The Fresh Roses scent is awesome. If you're a horse racing fan, they got Del Mar in there. You ever want to know what Del Mar smells like, but you couldn't make it out there? Order your candle right now from Sarah Candle Company. The website, CERAcandles.com. SarahCandles.com. Promo code GINO for 10% off your purchase. Very excited to have back to talk some horse racing. You heard her last week. I think we talked some, last month when we talked some Santa Anita. Unfortunately, no Santa Anita right now, but we do still have some really good racing going on at Gulfstream and Oaklawn Park. Our focus is going to be Oaklawn Park. Emily Gullikson from Optic CQ, Brisnet Selections. What am I missing, Emily? What else do we need to?
At this moment, that covers it. Optic
okay.
Brisnet are keeping me busy between Oaklawn and Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, I mean the racing at Oaklawn has been really good. It's unfortunate that with some of these racetracks closing, other tracks are really benefiting from it. And you see a card like Saturday at Oaklawn Park. There are some really good maiden races early on in the card. There's an interesting kind of allowance race that I want to talk about, and then a couple deep stakes races. So Oaklawn was really fun to handicap for this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a good meet overall, and it kind of had some anticipation on that front going in, with the structure and things like that, and it's delivered all around. But yeah, I mean, the Saturday card's great. We could have some weather, just kind of have to monitor that. But I think, overall, Oaklawn does a good job as far as track maintenance. But yeah, let's dig in if you're ready.
Let's do it. Let's get to race number 4. So the reason why I picked this race out was because it's a good little optional claim or allowance race. And there are a couple horses that we kind of know their names. We know Scabbard, who was he was a real buzz horse in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, remember, after his troubled trip in the Iroquois. And then he hasn't really done a whole lot. He did have a little bit of trouble in his first start this year. We have Fort McHenry is a horse a lot of people know, the $1 million purchase. He's been in the Greatest Stakes race a couple times. That's Chrome's brother. And then we also know Blackberry Wine, who's kind of an interesting horse to discuss because he's crossed the finish line first now 3 times, but he really only has 1 win. And when we saw him last, he was actually dropping out of the Grade 2 Risen Star, but 2 of his wins got stripped because he tested positive for banned substances. So he actually went back into a maiden race on March the 14th that was the Rebel undercard. He won that race by 13 lengths in the slop, and he earned a huge figure. He's just kind of a strange horse when you see something like this, when a horse has won a couple times, but then they get stripped because the way horse racing does it, the positive test comes so late that he's already actually won his second race before we even know that he tested positive for his first win.
Yeah, that is weird how that works out. And I mean, I kind of I look at them as wins, right? I mean, especially that one coming off the bat, and of course, just kind of having to stack that in with how he fits in this race. And I know we had talked earlier just about the stakes races. You mentioned this race, and I'm glad you did because it really is, an interesting race. I mean, it's from a handicapping perspective, it's really tricky. And then, you get into the more of the betting aspect of it, and I'm just, going off morning lines because we're sitting here on Thursday and then obviously Saturday, we don't have a live tote board, but, from a gambling standpoint, that's kind of my approach when I looked at this race, because there are so many kind of different outcomes that it really comes down to, I just want to approach it from value. So I think it's important. I know a lot of people are listening to this that maybe are new to playing horses or whatever, but I think it's important to kind of have an approach going into this race. And so that's sort of the way that I kind of looked at this from that perspective. And just sort of starting from eliminating horses. I think that's one thing that maybe sometimes even seasoned handicappers kind of forget to do. But if you just kind of go through the field and you're Momosa, the number 3, the number 7, Woo Pig Sui. And this is my opinion. I mean, obviously somebody could come at this a different way. Number 8, Amen Corner. And number 10, No Shirt, No Shoes. Those 4 horses to me in this 10-horse field are just below, as far as class, as far as speed figures, etc. So kind of eliminating those 4 horses right off the bat. So now I'm sort of looking at like a 6-horse field. And you talked about these horses that we know, and kind of going with the favored, who's Scabbard, who's fine, right? I mean, it makes sense for him to come out of those stakes races, kind of get some maybe some confidence in this allowance field, cutting back to a mile. I think it kind of helps him. He's a little bit on the smaller side. All that's positive, right? But is this a horse like you want as the favorite? I don't know. I don't feel that.
No, not me. I don't want him at 2-1, 5-2-ish. No.
Right. So then you're kind of like, okay, well, now I gotta go outward, right? So who's the second choice? Blackberry Wine. Kind of the same thing. I mean, he has those 3 wins, with the asterisks attached. And he's run some big figures, but then you kind of dig a little bit deeper, and the maiden race that he comes out of on March 14th was a pretty weak event. I mean, the horse that finished second was a first-time starter. All the other horses in that race are just, they're much slower than anything he's going to face here. He's kind of had, he's run good races, but he's kind of had some things his own way. He likes to be forwardly placed. Looking at this race complexion, he's going to have some contention in that front. So another horse, like, I'm not crazy about him at a short price.
Me neither. No.
And then, you just kind of keep going outward, right? You got Shoot or Shoot. Is he the third choice there? 7-2. He just broke his maiden over at Santa Anita. Urton has done well with his horses shipping into Oaklawn. So I think that's somewhat of an upgrade. But kind of overall, Optics Figs, I have Brisnet pulled up as well. Optics figures are a little bit lighter than what Brisnet has, and like for him being lighter, he's sort of below those kind of top tier. I shouldn't say top tier, but like a little bit below Scabbard, a little bit below Blackberry Wine on that front. So for him being a short price, and he kind of had some things go favorably in his March 15th race. Yep. And then, just kind of like from a value standpoint, I look at him, I look at a horse like Warrior's Map, who almost, optics figures kind of line up the same way. I could make a little bit more excuses for him in some of his Oaklawn races, just as far as trip and whatnot. And the race that he comes out of is probably even a little bit stronger facing older. So if I'm looking at, taking a maiden into allowance company, and these horses are pretty similar, Shoot or Shoot at 7-2, and number 6, Warriors Map at 15-1. I'm gonna, I'll take a little gamble. I'm not scared.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you lean in the price every time. Yeah, absolutely.
Working out that way, and then you're just sort of left at that point with 2 other horses who are a little bit fuzzy, right? You have Cleon Jones, who just didn't handle the kickback in the Remsen. He ran well in New York Bred Company. Englehart's another trainer that's been bringing in live. He's going to be tested, obviously, kind of going this 2 turns. If you excuse the Remsen, which was that 9 furlong race, but he kind of seems up to the task. If he runs back to his races, he could totally fit in here. And
he might get the trip. He really looks like he should get the trip. I mean, we don't know what the racetrack is going to be playing like.
Yeah,
but totally. He should save all the ground. There's a good amount of speed. I think that could be why I'm a little against Blackberry Wine too. When you have Shoot or Shoot in there, and then you look to the outside, there might be a couple other speed. Yeah, like I love what you did, like with eliminating, because I do something really similar when I'm handicapping and I'm just like going through, okay, nah, that one's not good enough, or his trip's not going to work, or she doesn't really fit here. And it makes it so much easier when you get down to, okay, these are, and we're going to be wrong sometimes when we just eliminate horses, right? Like it's going to happen. But when you set yourself up a field of, okay, these are the 5 horses that I feel like are going to get the trip. You have to trust your own handicapping and your ability, obviously, but it makes it so much easier. It doesn't feel like as overwhelming to tackle a big race.
Right. Yeah. And then absolutely. And then kind of the the other horse that just kind of got left out that deserves a mention is Fort McHenry. And I know he kind of had some hype being like California Chrome's brother and, gelded. So, I mean, they haven't really, things kind of haven't gone quite to plan, I would say. But I think there's some upside here as well. I think we talked about the San Felipe was the last time I was on your show, and I tried to make a case for him that afternoon, just as far as his 2-turn form, watching him train in the morning. He really looks like a 2-turn horse. His most recent startup at Golden Gate, I think that was a pretty good race. The winner kind of stopped right off him and the other horse that set the pace. And those 2 horses finished in a really, really, really tight photo for place. I'm terrible at calling photos. I would have called Fort McHenry. So I mean, when you see that 3 on there, it's pretty much a 2. But I just think, they got the blinkers back on. He's going to get to the main track. O'Neill's horses have been running well here. So he's another horse that, at a price is just kind of one that I'm keeping in the mix. So that's sort of the way that I kind of looked at this race, is just to not really be too scared of those favorites. Should they win, fine. But let's gamble.
Get a little value. Yeah, just demand a little value on who you like. Maybe it's like you said, maybe it's a horse like Warrior's Map. If Cleon Jones is around that, between 6 and 10 to 1, because he might be a horse that people forget a little bit about. If Shooters Shoot and Scabbard and Blackberry Wine and some of the horses who have a little bit more standout figures take a little more money, the one could float up. Warrior's Maps. I like what you mentioned, all the it seems like the legitimate contenders. And like always, I think price is the key when we're sitting here watching, like, who's going to offer us the best value. That's where we got to take the swing.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move into the stakes races now. We're going to go to race number 9 if you're following along with your past performances. And we're at Oaklawn on Saturday for April the 11th. So race number 9 is this is a really fun race to start to look into, because this is another one where you have some of these names of these kind of horses that we've gotten to know over the last couple years. You look at Mr. Money, who had an awesome end of 2019 where he put together a really good win streak. I mean, I thought he was going to win that Pennsylvania Derby. He just missed there. And then you can make an excuse for him in the Breeders' Cup, just put a line, end of the year, a track. He was just way out of it. A lot of horses didn't like that track. You have Tom's D'Etat, who was always kind of like a horse who would show up in big races, but he's been able to string some races together now, and he's got a little more consistent. We have Long Range Toddy, who was in the 2019 Derby. We have Improbable, who was in the 2019 Derby. So, I mean, right there, you have a field of 14, and in a we don't see big fields like this in some of these older stakes races. So it was just kind of refreshing to open up and see this in the past performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does get, you can kind of go through the same process as far as horses that are kind of below and as far as being contenders. But when you do have this big field of 14, it is going to change the race complexion a little bit, right? So you have a horse like, I'm trying to find one, for example, a horse like Boulder, for example, who has some speed, but he's been a sprinter. So is he going to make this pace a little bit faster than some of these route horses want to run on? Like, where does he kind of mix in? And even though maybe he's not a prime contender, he could make things difficult for, a Mr. Money for Improbable, who's got to clear from post 14. So you have those other kind of nuanced parts of this handicapping puzzle.
Yeah, this is fun. And then you have some of the horses who have been hanging around at Oaklawn and battling in some of the local stakes races like Pioneer Spirit and Bank It. So, I mentioned the horses that people know and the names. Where do you kind of start in here? Who are kind of some of your top tier horses in this one?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of going through the same process and then landing with the favorite, Tom's D'Etat, and I think he's legit, right?
Yep,
I mean, you have to assess the favorite, and in this spot, it's he's got class, he's consistent on speed figures, he's got the right running style. It's kind of he checks all those boxes. So from that perspective, I think he's a legit favorite. In this spot. So, I mean, it would be kind of anchoring around him. I do think that there are some horses that value perspective are worth a look. I know you said Bank It. He has a lot of upside to me. I thought he ran well in both the 5th season and the Razorback, and then had a kind of subtle excuse in the Essex Stakes. He was wide, which you didn't want to be wide that day. You wanted to be on the inside part of the track. He got shuffled back, just kind of overall just was not in the right spot to really run his race. And he has upside out of that. It's just kind of the right price being at 8 to 1, the pace. He's going to have a more favorable pace this afternoon. I know Asmussen's been a little bit cold, but when you're talking 15 to 1, you can be a little bit forgiving. Plus, also it's a trainer that he can train a horse. These trainers go through streaks, but then I think he kind of fits in here. Again, he's going to need a trip. He's going to need his best day to compete. I'm also going to give a look to Fight On for Doug O'Neill. He's run well at Oaklawn Park. It was kind of one of those horses that maybe, took a little bit to develop, and got actually pretty sharp last year at Oaklawn. Went over to Dubai, didn't really fare that well. And I mean, O'Neill's horses were running there, so maybe that's a little bit of a negative, but at the same time, it's also kind of a trickier spot. But he's just kind of a horse that, could just kind of be in the right place at the right time,
kind of fall into it. Yeah.
And, is 20-1. I mean, if I'm looking at Optics plot, the surface and distance, he's in the exact same spot with the exact same square as Tom's d'Etat. So it's kind of like, if I find he's a legit favorite and another horse that's 20-1, I don't want to get too cute in that perspective. So he's an include. Those are just kind of the three horses for me that I'm going to play around with in here.
Yeah, I like Bankit quite a bit. I think I completely agree on Tom's d'Etat. Like, he's not a favorite that I'm looking to line up to beat in here. I just, if there are going to be other races where I don't like the chalk, that I'm willing, but he is legit. He's been good, and he's become like a legitimate, like, grade 2, even like low level grade 1 in some spots, which he won last time out. And there's not a whole lot of depth in the divisions anymore, so we don't really know what grade caliber horses are anymore. It's not like it used to be. He fits really well. The only horse I wanted to mention, who I kind of think is a little bit interesting from sort of the same perspective as you said with Fight On, is the 11 Lord Guinness. I think he can hit pick up a slice and kind of just fall into it if he's sitting in a good spot. I think some of those races, I remember him when he was at Santa Anita in Southern California earlier, and he just didn't get really good rides. There was a bug rider for a while who was aboard, and he didn't always get the best trips and spots. And he came off of a long layoff. It was a race that he needed. He ran pretty well. A horse snuck up the inside. He might not have even seen him. Like, he just missed. And I don't know if he's good enough, if a Tom's d'Etat or a Mr. Money or one of them show up with their A game. But he is at least the type of horse who has a little bit of value and who might get the right kind of trip in here to fall in and to pick up a slice.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, this is worth mentioning, is that both Lord Guinness and Improbable were entered to run in a stakes race at Santa Anita the weekend that they had closed, had the order that they couldn't race. And I gave him a look in there as well. I think you bring up all the right points, that he's just kind of one of those horses that kind of seems to be figuring it out, and it can definitely be along for a share. I agree. I mean, he's a little bit slower right now, but it's not like he's that far off, and he's just, if you project a little bit of upside, he could definitely be right there in the mix.
Okay, that's a fun race to talk about in race number 9, and now we're going to move to race number 11. This is the Oaklawn Stakes, and this is actually what would have been the Arkansas Derby. The Arkansas Derby is now going to be moved into May and kind of take the place of the weekend where the Kentucky Derby would have been run. So what you have here is you have a lot of connections and a lot of trainers who have kind of been sitting on their hands and not sure what's going to happen with the last round of Kentucky Derby preps. Santa Anita Derby, the Bluegrass, the race at Sunland, the Wood, like all these races had to get canceled. We only had the very few that remain: Louisiana Derby, Florida Derby. It does look like we're going to still have the Arkansas Derby in a few weeks. So this is sort of a prep. It's kind of weird how they done it. They flipped these two stakes races. It's now going 1 1/8. It's the Oaklawn. It's $200,000. And I believe the top 3 finishers of this get into the Arkansas Derby automatically. A big field here. You have Baffert coming in with 1,000 Words. You have Asmussen trying to hopefully start a new momentum streak with a couple legitimate horses in here. So let's kind of do the same thing that we did with the other couple races and start with, the logicals, the favorites. What do we do with 1,000 Words, who comes off of that disappointing San Felipe effort when he was, really just kind of outrun by his stablemate Authentic?
Yeah, he could definitely win. It's just, it kind of goes back to the other 3-year-old race of it being like, do you trust him at a short price? And I don't think I do. I mean, it's more kind of his style. And I've watched his works coming out of the race, and I've obviously watched his races, and even before the San Felipe, and you kind of watched his wins. It's like he's not overly impressive. He kind of finds some trouble, but he grinds it out. And that's kind of how he works as well. And, maybe if you're like really looking for an excuse and for a reason, for him being like, his trip was there was really no excuse in his trip, but maybe being like behind horses, he wants to sort of be forwardly placed and he just kind of wants to grind it out. So maybe that's his winning ways, but he's just not that overly flashy horse. To get super excited about. So I think he fits in here. I think he can be a contender, but he's not a horse that I'm like, I want to be singled to by any means, or would feel like, a Tom Zietot where it's like, he's clearly the horse to beat. I'm going to kind of sink my wager sort of around him. So yeah, I'm a little iffy. I'm kind of going outside on that of him in this spot.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think he just feels like he needs to be in a really good spot, and I think that if he's the type of horse who like gets shuffled back and has to make a move and come around, I don't feel comfortable that he's going to be able to do that and win. You mentioned it perfectly. He's just very grindy. He just doesn't have much of a turn of foot, and so if he's sitting close, he's kind of a tough horse to pass late because he'll kind of fight you a little bit and he'll battle you. But I just worry that if he gets shuffled, has to re-rally, kind of things get a little tough in a big field like this. I don't want to have to worry about that at a very short price with him. Of the horses who I think are going to get bet, I would much prefer Basin. It feels to me like this is a good spot for him to show some improvement. I think, when you watch his race a little bit, maybe not the easiest spot to come back in the slop. That race with Nadal was a little bit weird. You had mentioned it. Kind of being on the inside was the place to be. He had some traffic and shuffled a few different times, and he still actually ran on pretty well late, finishing third. So I guess of the short prices for sure, I would prefer Basin. I think this is probably he should be ready to take a nice step forward here.
Yeah, I agree. And for all those reasons, I think he should get what he needed out of that race. His first start around 2 turns, all that stuff. So this is kind of the spot for him to just sort of step up at this point. Another horse that I'm leaning on the more and more I look at it is Farmington Road.
Sure.
I don't know where you kind of went this way as well. I thought it was kind of a sneaky good run in the Risen Star. He was a little bit against the profile, a little bit against the way the kind of dynamics of the race. Showed some run, showed a move, and was still kind of running at the end. Continued to gallop out. I mean, just not a horse that looks like distance is going to be a problem. And he's going to have he should have much more pace to run at here. Obviously being that far back is, not quite ideal, but I believe there's the equipment change, right?
Yeah, the blinkers. Yeah. And I don't think he and even before the blinkers too, like he doesn't have to be that far back.
Correct.
He doesn't have to be dead last and go by every other. Like he could be, 3 or 4 from the back, and that's fine in a spot like that, just like to keep yourself out of a little bit more traffic.
Right. So I like him in here. I just think there's some upside off that. I like that effort. And just, you kind of look at the way this race shapes out for all those reasons. And this is just a great spot for him to run back in. I don't know. It was hard for me to get like too super excited about a lot of horses in here. There's some other ones I gave a look to. Tation I think is okay. He's not a super need the lead type, even though he
yes.
lead last
that's
time.
That's a really good point. He got forced from the rail, kind of. It was like we're inside, it's sloppy. Like I'm just gonna get out in front and try to stay out of trouble. But I could really see him sitting, and he may be able to sit a good trip in here if he's like just off.
Right. Yeah. For all those reasons. I mean, he was super wide and had trouble in the Southwest. And I just think they were just like, you're the best horse in the race. Just go from the rail and just win,
Yep,
and so, he's got that tactical speed. He can finish, Rosario's a great finisher. So, I like him in this spot.
Is Digital more of a miler?
I think he's more of a one turn. I really do. I mean, I think there's just some stamina limitations, but he's fast enough to compete in here. But that's just sort of coming out of those fairgrounds races, just kind of the one concern with him. I mean, he'll be sitting like right there, and then maybe that extra furlong just kind of is idling. Background is kind of interesting to me. He's just been like improving and kind of running on, and I know he's like a big price. I don't know if he's necessarily like the win. Actually, it's 12-1. Win contender type, but he's sticking around. Could be worth like exotics. Sort of a little bit surprised. I'm just looking at the morning lines right now. Gold Street. I don't think he'll be 20-1. I think people like this horse and go back to the Smarty Jones, where he kind of had everything his own way on the front end, was on the right part of the track, had a really soft pace on the front end. Kind of a tough spot here, but I think he'll probably be shorter than the morning line.
I think for me, like, Shoplifted hasn't done enough this year. He just hasn't really improved. He just kind of seems like the same horse every time, and that might be enough to pick up like underneath pieces in some spots, but I haven't seen enough improvement from him.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I was making cases for him, out of the Santa Anita races, just not making that track there. And then just coming to Oaklawn Park, it's like his speed figures haven't improved. Visually, he hasn't improved. The strength of those races, it's like they've been kind of average. But he's another horse that, like, the way he looks on Optics Plot and his run style, I mean, he's going to get a great trip. Yep. If for some reason, this is the day that the light switch goes on, he could be right there. But I agree, he's just not been quite fast enough at this point to, really show he belongs kind of in this kind of stakes division.
The one other horse I wanted to mention, I think you mentioned him when you were on with Scott Shapiro and you guys were talking of the Rebel Undercard on the Who Do You Like podcast, Coach Bahi, who, was funny. He was taken back and he was 10 off and he made this big 5-wide move. And as soon as Vic called him, he like immediately flattened out. Like he called him in the middle, like a big call. Here comes Coach Bahi. And then boom, like it was like he heard Vic and then he's going to flatten out right after that. But he did kind of make a big move into contention before flattening out. I think I don't know if that means for this race or for whatever, but I do think there might be a little something here with him if he finds the right spot to maybe at least give you some value somewhere. Do you give this horse any chance to pick up a piece?
Yeah, I kind of on that podcast I kind of said the same thing, that he was more of kind of an underneath type because he'd been improving and would like relish the distance, which I think is here. But again, just speed figure wise, he's just a little bit on the slower side. He's just got to take another step forward again, but more capable underneath.
Emily, this was a lot of fun. You do a great job handicapping. I like to follow along. And if someone wants to look at some of your write-ups and some of the optics, like you guys do, like you do like free races of the day, which I was all over. Honestly, like last weekend, one of the horses I think Emma was the one who I hadn't even looked at a whole lot of Oaklawn for that day. I kind of briefly looked. I read your write-up, and then it kind of looked at the past performances, and it was just like a blind, like, thank you, I'll take that one, sure. So,
you're welcome.
where do you where can we find those, and where can we find some of your stuff, and give us your social media plugs?
Yeah, so everything, all the content I've written up for this weekend is going to all be free. Race of the day is up at Brisnet. I'll tweet that out. So it's Emily. Twitter at Emily Optics EQ. I'll tweet out the links for those Brisnet, and they're usually supported. Twin Spires, Brisnet, Optics EQ. I'll retweet. I did a horse by horse for this race on Saturday, and then it's kind of some three. I think maybe some clever spots tomorrow. A little bit stabby. I tried to get creative in this stuff. Try to find some things that maybe aren't super obvious, to people that are just looking at the past performances. So some ideas for tomorrow, but all that'll be up on Brisnet and then over at Optics EQ as well.
Thank you so much, Emily. We always have a blast talking racing, and I look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
That was Emily Gullikson. You heard all the information of where you can find her on social media. Let's take a quick break here on That's What G Said, and then we'll be right back. A big thank you to Emily for talking some Oaklawn. Always love the horse racing conversations we get to have. So let me quickly run through the card and some of the other horses throughout the card that I like a little bit. In the second race and the third race, I would be super Captain Obvious, so nothing to really give you much except for I think the 8 Miss Imperial in the second is going to be really tough. And then in the third race, I would think the 8 Skull Factor and the 9 Violent Pass would be two to include. In the fourth race, the one that we talked about with Emily, I do like the 1, Cleon Jones. I think is going to sit a really, really nice trip in there. I think has every opportunity in a race that looks to have a ton of speed. So we're gonna start there in race number 4 with the 1, Cleon Jones. In race number 5, the 2 horses I would look at would be the 12 the 12 Cynical Girl is going to get a big jock upgrade, is going to add the blinks with that outside speed, and the 10 Nasty, who's got some money in the debut, who ran pretty well, was kind of in between, and didn't really seem to settle a whole lot, and I think should mature and show a little bit more of the opportunity to relax here in career start number 2. So let's use the 12 and the 10 in race number 5. In the 6th, the 5-6 though is interesting. I mean, if you just can excuse the Gotham and just play him off of his debut race, he would be a major, major player in this spot. So let's look to the 5-6 though. The 6 Geo Care obviously makes some sense. Captain Bombastic and Pneumatic will be tough in here, but 6 though we'll make a win wager on if we can get a nice price on that one. In race number 7, I'm going to go to the 10. Shaka. It looks like Smack Attacks pace, Plain Talks pace, Absolute Units pace. You're going to get some pace from Pine Knoll. I think Shaka, Joel jumping on. Another one, unfortunately, just feels like we're on Joel quite a bit, right? He was completely outrun in that last race, but he had a brutal start. He was only 3-1. He got bumped in at the start. He was 9th going, inside, and it was in the slop, and he had lost to Blackberry Wine, who's a multiple winner, the horse that we spoke about. I think there's more to this guy, and I think it's a really good spot to come running late, and that's the number 10, Shaka. In race number 8, the number 9, Proverb. He's going to get bet a little bit in here, and it's again we're on Rosario, but he had a good start, and he was right with the leaders in his last start, but then he takes back, and then he couldn't kind of keep up early on after grabbing a hold. He got buried inside. He gets shuffled all the way back to last. He's inside with nowhere to go. He has to weave through traffic. He ducks back down to the inside. It was a bad ride. It was a tough trip, and I'm not surprised to see a jock switch in here. Going to put 2 starts together now. You can see he's never really run a bad race, and he has some talent. His problem is that in the last year and a half, he just hasn't been able to stay on the racetrack. I think he's going to get a lot of fitness out of that last start. That's the number 9, Proverb, in race number 8 at Oaklawn. In race number 9, we spoke about this one with Emily, and I mentioned the 11, Lord Guinness, and then after that, there's many different ways to go. The 8, I thought Bankett's fun to use, and then you're kind of getting to what do you do with Mr. Money, Tom's D-Tot, and Improbable, that next tier of horses, but make sure to include the 11, Lord Guinness, in some of your exotics. The 10th race, look at the 7, Oxide in here. You just have some speed on the cutback. I like both of his last 2 races. The turf race at Gulfstream 2-back was actually really solid as well. So give Oxide a look in here. Who could be really tough to catch if he's able to get out front and slow things down. And then in the Oaklawn, Basin for me with Tyshawn. And then if you're looking for the price, maybe Coach Bahe. So I would be 182 there. And then to close things out in race number 12, the number 9, Cashinova. I'm making weird noises, right? I was like trying to formulate a thought in here. So he's going to go second start off the long layoff. And in his last start, he was bumped at the start. He ended up last, and he didn't seem to be going over the track all that well, but he was maybe 20 lengths out of it early on, like 18 to 20 lengths. He started to roll from the back. He was absolutely flying, and he doesn't have to be so far back. I think some of that had to do with the slop. He was maybe just outrun a little bit. He hadn't run it since May of 2019. Another who should really, really improve with the race under his belt. That is Kasha Nova there, the number 9. So I'll run through one more time of Oaklawn, some of the horses we like. The second, Miss Imperial, not something that I would bet a whole lot on, and same thing in the 3rd, Skull Factor, Violent Pass, in there. Like the 1, Cleon Jones in the 4th, the 5th race, the 12, Cynical Girl with the 10, Nasty, the 6th, we'll go with the number 5, Sixto. God, that's a weird one, right? In the 6th, we're going with the number 5, Sixto. In the 7th, we're going with the 10, Shaka, the 8, the number 9, Proverb, the price of the 11, Lord Guinness in the 9th, the 10th race, the 7 Oxide in the 11th, Basin with Tyshawn and maybe Coach Bayi underneath, and then in the 12th race, Cash Anova on what looks like a great card on Saturday over at Oaklawn Park. Let's move on to an interview. We're going to talk with Don August. We're going to recap WrestleMania. It was 2 nights for the first time this year. We go through all the matches. We give some of our thoughts. Enjoy this WrestleMania recap. Okay, we got a first-time guest on the show right now, and very happy to introduce Don August. I've been talking with Don over the last couple months online more. So we talked racing, sports, got involved in some pools, playing the bowl games and other stuff too, and now WrestleMania season. So we have to talk a little WrestleMania. But Don, when I bring you in, thanks for joining us, and why don't you introduce everyone out there to you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks, Gino, for having me. My name is Don August, and I'm from Northern California, where I spent all my life until the last 2 years, where I came down here to Southern California. The last 10 years, I was a jockey agent at Golden Gate Fields. And I really enjoyed that, but kind of needed a new change in my life. So I moved down here to Los Angeles and started working at Santa Anita Racetrack, Del Mar, and Los Alamitos, and in the racing office. Wanted to get on the other side of the counter this time, which I did, and I'm enjoying that immensely, except for the last few months, which we've had a little slowdown here in the racing business, but we're still there waiting for it to come back. And now I'm just enjoying what I do, working with the trainers and the racing officials in a different capacity.
Okay, so, we'll have you back sometime to talk racing stuff and other things. But this has been a big week for WWE because this is WrestleMania season, and this was one that's unlike any other. Before we get into the specifics of this WrestleMania, what's your wrestling fandom been like? Tell us a little bit about your history as a wrestling fan.
The first time I remember watching wrestling was when Rocky Johnson and Pat Patterson were a tag team,
nice.
And they jumped out of the crowd. And I was at a friend's house. I remember this. They jumped out of the crowd. The Masked Invaders were wrestling. I don't know who they were wrestling, but they tore them up. They tore their masks off, tore their clothes up. And Rocky Johnson was one of my favorite wrestlers of all time when I was growing up. So I watched wrestling for quite a while after that. And then the last 5 years, I actually got out of it a little bit. Just kind of got into other things, got back into it about 2 or 3 years ago and saw these people I did not even remember from when I stopped watching it the first time. But now I've gotten back into it bigger than ever the last couple of years, and I'm ready to talk WrestleMania. Yeah,
and so, there were obviously a lot of mixed feelings going into this WrestleMania because of everything going on in the world. And this was going to be one that was a lot different. It was going to be at the Performance Center where they have NXT, and it was going to be a WrestleMania with no fans. And so we wondered if WWE was going to get a little bit creative or we're going to do things differently. And they really did. They tried some things here. I think there were a couple matches that we're going to discuss that were very polarizing. A lot of people liked what they tried. Some people thought it was awful because it wasn't wrestling. But overall, I thought the 2 nights were pretty good. There were, and watching it back even again in the last couple days since the show, there wasn't a whole lot of bad, Don, that I thought there was. I thought even the things that maybe weren't as good as they could have been, they didn't deliver, they still weren't really bad. What were kind of your overall big picture thoughts on the show?
Well, I thought they did a great job for what they had to deal with. And there was a lot of talk beforehand, but would they do it? Would they go off with it? Would they postpone it? How would the matches come across with no crowd and trying to be this huge thing? But I think that they went out of the box with a few matches. The wrestlers, I thought, gave 110%. It's almost like you didn't know that there was no crowd there the way they acted, which is not easy to do when you go out there and you're by yourself in the biggest event of your season.
Probably deflating for some of them, right? Expecting to get the big pop. This is the night for some of these wrestlers. It was supposed to be their big crowning moment, and there's no one there. And I didn't get the sense from anyone that they were really like mailing it or phoning it in,
Not at all. I mean, the way that when a couple of the title matches that changed hands, they looked at the titles like there was a crowd cheering behind them, which I thought was hard to do, but I think they did a great job at selling the fact that they were really into the moment no matter what was going on around them.
So we things kicked off on night 1, and for the first time ever, this was 2 nights, and this the format, especially, I hope they kind of do this moving forward again, and they'll have to probably set the cards a little bit earlier for night 1 and night 2 or whatever they're going to do. But this felt so much better. Some nights and I love wrestling, you love wrestling, but some nights when it gets to 5, 6, 7 hours for one show, it just can't help but drag in certain spots. Some matches kind of get forgotten about. They get kind of blown right over. This felt much better, I think, with the format of 2 nights. It felt like everybody really kind of got their opportunity to go for a while here.
It did, and they did the cuts to the interviews at the perfect times.
Yep.
You were waiting for the next match to come on when it came on. It wasn't like you're waiting. Okay, well, the big match is going to be in 4 hours from now, so I'm going to go grab something to eat now, or I'm going to watch this later on. It flowed real good the way they did it.
It did. They booked the show really, really well. It was timed out really, really well. It wasn't hard to watch either way, and that just makes you feel better. Doesn't leave a sour taste in your mouth.
Right.
So let's get into night 1, and it was the kickoff show. We had a match with Gulag versus Cesaro. Did you catch the kickoff show match?
I did, and I was a little surprised that Cesaro won because they had this faction with Sami Zayn and Cesaro and Shinsuke, and it was started out real hot, and then all of a sudden they started losing lately, and you kind of thought they were building up Gulak with Daniel Bryan a lot. And Cesaro came up with this incredible no-handed airplane swing for the pin, which is a movie I'd never seen before. And it was a great finish.
These guys are good. It was a good finish. And it was, for like a 4-minute match, it was really solid. And it was just starting to pick up a little bit, too, and get to like another gear. So, at some point, if these guys were able to get a little bit more time, I'm sure it could be even better. I enjoyed that. So, yeah, not a bad start and just like a fun kickoff match to kind of get get everybody's attention here as we got into, the opening package for WrestleMania. First, we get Stephanie McMahon, and she's talking about how this is going to be a little bit different. She comes out and speaks about how there are not going to be any fans there. She just kind of sets up the night. And then on night 1, we got this video package that cut together all of the or a lot of different folks who sang America the Beautiful at previous WrestleManias. And I thought this was excellent. It was really well done.
It was great. And people who had never maybe seen WrestleManias before got an idea of how big of a thing it was by watching all the stars that were there in the past and what they did for that. Yeah,
I kind of got chills watching it. It's like a trip through our paths of all these different WrestleManias. And then it was like a Jack Sparrow, like pirate themed voice opening that had narrated the package for WrestleMania, which was unfortunate because it was supposed to be, a all pirate kind of theme because it was going to be at Tampa Bay Buccaneers Stadium. Right. And now they're in the Performance Center. So
I was kind of surprised they kind of kept that theme going.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Stuff built up ahead of time, probably, and filmed ahead of time. But
yep. And they probably just figured,
kept the logos up and everything beforehand. I thought, they're going to change this, but they didn't. But it still worked.
We get to Gronk, who's the host of the show, and the host of these Mania shows don't really do a whole heck of a lot. They appear maybe once or twice, throughout the show, say a couple things. And Gronk, he's goofy, man. He's good when there's a lot of people around, I think, to feed off of, but he's not necessarily just the best at cutting a promo. I mean, he just flubs some easy words sometimes, but he's a ball of energy, and he's definitely bringing some eyeballs to the WWE.
He is just so entertaining to watch no matter what he does. He just got eliminated from the Masked Singer the week before that. He was doing the singing with a costume on, and the guy just has no limits to what he can do out there and just entertains no matter what he does. He's great to watch.
He is, and you know what? He could be fun when they use him in the right role. I thought the next night too, because he looks like he's willing to maybe take some chances here and to really have some fun with this. So.
He was in WrestleMania before, he was in a match before, so he's in his blood, and they talked about signing him going forward for a contract. So I think we'll probably see a lot more.
Yeah, and he's a, like, sometimes we see celebrity interactions too and stuff. He's definitely a wrestling fan because of Mojo Rawley, who's his good buddy. Oh, yeah. And so he's, that's one of his best friends. He's always been around to support him, showed up at a lot of the shows, and he cut in one of his promos on SmackDown a few weeks ago how, like, he's been to really small house shows, just to go support the guys a lot of the time because that's his friend. So, yeah, he's not bullshitting, either when he's out here. So he
loves being out there.
Yeah, he enjoys it. He just likes to perform, and he likes to be out there. He has a good time no matter what he does. So I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with Gronk moving forward.
Got a title now, so you never know.
yeah, you're right. He's going to be around with that 24/7 title, which we'll talk about from night 2, where he jumped off the barricade. So this was a good women's tag match to start. It was Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus Asuka and Kairi Sane. Michael Cole and JBL were calling the action out here. This match went about 15 minutes or so, and we get an Alexa Bliss. Alexa hit the Twisted Bliss. She kind of botched it a little bit. She hit it on the legs there for the finish, but it was a good little combination with Nikki. They were really selling the fact that Nikki was the announcers were that she was rising to the occasion in this match, and all four of these ladies are really good workers. I figured this would be a good match, and this was pretty solid. They got a lot of time here, and it wasn't boring or anything. It went pretty well.
It was a very good match. Alexa Bliss was the focal point of the match. She took a lot of punishment throughout the match, but she kept going. And you kind of forgot about those two for a while before just kind of brought back into it like a week before WrestleMania. Like they had no chance for a title match, and all of a sudden, boom, there they were. But they've always been very, very prominent on the women's scene, and their interviews are great. And I like the two of them together. I always thought they would go against each other eventually, but I like the friends that they have going now. So.
I agree. They have some chemistry, and I think maybe they realize that because it seemed so obvious that Alexa would just kind of turn on them. But I think they kind of like Alexa in this, like, quasi babyface role, and she's kind of becoming that. She's really kind of fun. She's just goofy. If you follow Alexa online and stuff too, you can see she's like big into Disney and characters, and she's really like funny, and she's really like a little kid. So she's kind of, if you know her, she's actually a really easy babyface, but she just played that role of the heel so well for so long. It was hard to take her out of it. And she's just a really good performer all the way around. And she's, whenever she's out there, I'm definitely paying attention. She does a good job, and they both did a really good job here. As we moved on to a backstage interview with Sami Zayn, with his little faction that you just mentioned, Cesaro and Nakamura, and he's confident that he's going to beat Daniel Bryan, which we get a match from them later on. But this was, not a whole lot, just kind of a pretty basic promo from Sami as the heel.
Sammy's great with the promos,
Oh man!
First of all, he's got the best entrance music in the world. I think I love this song
easily. Yeah,
and just the way when he comes down to the matches from on the ramp to the song, dancing and falling all around, just cracked me up every time I watched him. So the guy is just made to be on screen. He's just great to watch.
We also see Shayna Baszler warming up for her match a little bit later on. We then get Elias versus Baron Corbin. Corbin's out there cutting a promo. He says, Elias is nowhere to be found after he attacked Elias last week. He's not even going to be able to show up. And then Elias does, in fact, show up. He comes down and he's playing the guitar, obviously. And then immediately you get a guitar smash, and then things start to ramp up. This match went about 9 minutes or so. And you know what? At the end, Corbin was trying to cheat using his feet on the ropes. He was arguing with the ref, and then Elias took advantage and rolls up Corbin for the pin. I was a little surprised. Elias just doesn't win a whole lot of matches. He doesn't really even have a whole lot of matches anymore.
Some people went on Twitter right after that and said, "When's the last time Elias won a match?"
When have we heard this music at the end? You know what I mean? Like we did, yeah.
It's good. No, this is where I actually thought that Gronk would jump in because him and Corbin started that little fact thing the night before. Almost seemed like they're setting up a match. And then Elias came out and they threw Elias off the stage before, and that's what set this up. But I thought Gronk might steal it and get in the smash somehow. But Corbin, ever since he won the King of the Ring, he's been not much of a winner. He's lost all his matches to everybody he's gone against. So I'm kind of surprised they had him lose to Elias, but they must be setting something up.
Yeah. We then get a video package setting up the Raw Women's title match. Shayna versus Becky. Becky comes out in her 18-wheeler. She's got the big rig, and she hops out and makes her entrance, comes into the ring. And, when I watched this one went 8:30. And it was back and forth, and Becky was looking like she was starting to get to the point where Shayna had the advantage, and she kind of maneuvered into a three, roll up out of nowhere for the pin. It was a good counter. At 8:30, Becky gets the win, and we could see Shayna was kind of shocked and obviously pissed off that it wasn't like a definitive win or anything. And what we've seen the next couple nights following, it doesn't seem like this feud is necessarily over. And so then, looking back at it and knowing what we know now, I'm more okay with it. I think I was just expecting a little bit more out of this match because I thought this was even one of the matches they would have maybe thought about putting on towards the end and going a lot longer than this. But it felt like this wasn't the end of the feud. It felt like this was kind of just the start of the feud. And when I watched it back again too, I did think it was solid for what it was. I wanted it to get to another level that it didn't.
I was expecting more too, and I think that the way they finished it with Baszler getting pinned in that fashion, she can't come out all ahead of time as being this destroyer that seemed like she was, and then get trashed in the match. It would just totally kill what they had going for her. So having this quick roll up pin that you were talked about was like, okay, yeah, it was a pin, but it wasn't a definitive pin. So now Baszler can still come out and be a monster that they want her to be because it was like a fluke thing. So I think that's the way they're setting it up for a lot more matches between those two coming up.
Yep. Up next, we get the Intercontinental Championship match, Daniel Bryan versus Sami Zayn. And you mentioned Sami Zayn just doing some great heel work. We also saw Mojo and Rob Gronk up in the perch just kind of watching and getting pumped up for Daniel Bryan when he came out. So Gulak was with D-Bry, and then Nakamura and Cesaro were with Sami Zayn. And Sammy's just doing all the great heel stuff at the beginning, like ducking out of the ring, running around, trying to like chase have Daniel Bryan chase him right into Nakamura and Cesaro. Really good stuff. And we eventually get to the point where, Daniel Bryan kind of just tells Gulak, hey, let Sami Zayn walk back down to the locker room. It's fine. And as Sami starts to run, Bryan just guns it after him, guns it right after him, grabs him, throws him back in the ring. And then from then on, when D-Bry was on offense, and even some of Sammy's like counters, and that few minutes, like about five, the whole thing ended up being 9:20. About the last 5 minutes or so, it was really, really good and hard hitting.
I'll tell you, Daniel Bryan's one of the best technical wrestlers you're ever going to see in the ring. And Sami Zayn's a lot better than people give him credit for, because before he was a manager and when he was wrestling, he was losing a lot, but he was still a lot of entertaining matches. So you put those two together, and I'm sure that they knew what they could do with each other. And like to the last 4 or 5 minutes, it was a lot of good wrestling matches and good holds.
It was excellent. Sami actually hits Daniel Bryan's kind of like a little distracted. Sami hits Daniel comes off the top rope, and Sami hits like a huluva kick to get the pin. And Sami gets the win at 9:20 to retain the IC title. But I think Daniel Bryan's having kind of a lot of fun with these guys. I think he really likes working with this group. He's been in the main event title back and forth, and he'll be there again at some point. But I think he enjoys working with this group of really good workers. Like all 5 of these guys that are on both sides can really go in the ring.
Kind of makes you wonder what they're going to do with those 5 next. Whether it's going to be tag matches or whether it's going to be more solo matches, because they've been pitting them against each other quite a bit lately, solo wise. But they are a tag team group, so we'll see what they do.
This next match was really, really good. Before we get to it, though, I always think it's funny when they have to do something like this, when it's a triple threat tag team championship match with no tag teams. And it's fine by me. The match quality was great. We got 3 good workers, and we understand why Miz was sick, and they ended up, being cautious right now in this time and era for sure. But these guys can go. All 3 of them. I really even like the spot right off the bat where it's like they all kind of went at each other real quick, and everybody it was like a stalemate. It was like everybody was kind of ready for each other, and there were some really, really great spots in this match. They all took a beating in here. They all got some great offense in. At the very end, they were all up there, the 3 of them, battling for the belts, and they unclipped the holder of the belts, and they're struggling, they're battling, and Morrison gets knocked off the ladder. Kofi and Jimmy Uso are kind of still holding the title holder, but Morrison had grabbed the belts when he falls back onto the ladder. It was kind of a unique spot. These guys, I mean, this was great. This went 18 minutes and 30 seconds. If there was a crowd there, this would have been tearing the place down. The crowd would have been going absolutely crazy, because it's hard nowadays in these ladder matches to do things that we haven't seen before. But with Morrison and his kind of unique offense, with Kofi, and he can do whatever, and with Jimmy Uso, who is obviously like unbelievably athletic, these guys went at it, man. This was a great match.
If there was a crowd, there would have been a lot of "this is awesome" chants going on. Oh, yeah. See, now John Morrison is a guy who came. I didn't really know him before I started watching recently. Before he came back again, he was there when I was not watching wrestling very much. he's really good in the ring, and I didn't realize how good he was. But to put those three guys together in the ladder match, obviously they knew exactly what they could do. And when they grabbed the titles all together, I thought they were going to ring the bell and say they couldn't determine a winner.
Yeah.
And then that was going to make another whole rivalry come out of that group. But to have them fall off with the titles was a very unique ending. I did not see that coming, but it actually worked the way it was, having the two guys at the top of the ladder staring at each other like, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, so this was a blast. If you're someone who hasn't watched Mania, or you kind of like to go back and pick and choose like really good matches, at the Daniel Bryan match is when I feel like this show really started to pick up, especially like towards the end of that match. And then you have this match was really good. And then we get to Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, another match that was excellent. It was back and forth. It was really good. And then Rollins grabbed the bell, the timekeeper's bell, and he hit Owens with it, and the ref calls the match by a DQ. And if it would have ended there, it just would have been fine. It would have been okay, not bad, not anything. But Kevin Owens grabs the microphone and he calls out Rollins, and he says, "You know what? It's not going to end this way." And he says, "Rollins, you're a little bitch." And he calls him back to the ring, and he says, "We're going to finish this one and for all. No DQ, no rules. Come on, let's do it." And so they restart the match, no DQ. And then things really, really start to pick up. And we get an unbelievable spot where Kevin Owens climbs up on top of the big WrestleMania sign that they have set up there on the entranceway. And this thing is way up there. He does a huge senton to put Rollins through the announce table. And, I mean, this was a big bump. He gets him back in the ring, drops him with the stunner, gets the win at 17-20 overall. And after the restart, really, really good stuff. And even before, it wasn't bad. It was fine, but it was obviously building up to this point.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that they actually restarted the match, because I thought it was going to end that way, and I thought Kevin would get on the microphone like he always does and call him out, and that would be set up another match for coming up in the future. But Owens had his WrestleMania moment. I mean, they were talking about it. He never had one before, and to go off that sign with the arm drop like he did was just incredible to see from every angle the camera had it on.
Yeah, you mentioned the build to this match was a lot about WrestleMania moments, and that Rollins has had a bunch of them, and that Owens hasn't, and he struggled, and so it was played out perfectly, and it paid off really, really well, which is something they always used to do at WrestleMania, but in the last few years they kind of haven't. Even with like the Becky Shayna thing, it felt like WrestleMania used to be the time when everything kind of culminated, and now it's harder to do that because they have so much continuing programming that it's like you can't really have every storyline completely ending all at the same time and all starting again at the next time. They're all kind of in flux. So this was perfect. I loved everything about this. This was really, really good, and it gives Kevin Owens like a nice little shot in the arm now moving forward.
It's almost like the end of the season when WrestleMania hits, because then you can, like you said, start all your storylines over again. But some of them will stop, and some of them are going to be built from these matches.
Yep. So we get to Gronk and Mojo one more time. They're interrupted by R-Truth, the 24/7 champion. He's talking about how his life is miserable. He never gets the rest. He never gets to sleep. He's always having to defend this title. And he asks Mojo and Gronk if he can hide out there with them. And they kind of look at each other. And Gronk goes for the pin, and he wants to win the 24/7 title, but Mojo robs him, steals the pin, gets the title. Mojo celebrates, and Gronk's all upset. So we know that Gronk is obviously trying to get this 24/7 title now. Just a small little interaction, but it's these kind of things that get shown all over ESPN, SportsCenter, Fox Sports, especially right now when there's not a whole lot of sports going on.
How good is R-Truth when he says what kind of title he has, the 24/7, 7-Eleven? I mean, he just goes on. I think he adds things every time he says
so underrated. So underrated. I mean, and this is a great role for him with this title.
This whole title, to me, I mean, it gets way out of hand sometimes when
they're
doing it at weddings, and but just the characters that they bring into this championships are just incredible. I mean, R-Truth is fantastic to watch. Mojo, when he had it, he brought it to a different level where it's going to challenge anybody and everybody, but they're going to just have fun with this title and just keep doing weird things with it, and people are going to love it.
So up next, Paul Heyman cuts a promo. He hypes up the Lesnar match against Drew McIntyre for night 2, and they go through the card for night 2, and then we get to the Universal title match. And this match was, I will say, I'm glad that it was quick and it was just in and out. they didn't do a really good job when we found out that Roman Reigns was not going to be in this match. This was a Universal title match that was supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Bill Goldberg. Completely understand why Roman Reigns isn't there. Someone who has had leukemia. He thought he didn't want to be in an environment like this. He thought it was safer to not even chance it. Completely understand. We could have gotten even if that was what was said. Everybody knows what's going on. I know they don't want to like fog the the lines that much between reality but even if anything at all was said, why Roman Reigns wasn't here? He suffered an injury. Roman Reigns suffered an injury training for this match. He's going to be out. He could literally be sitting on his couch and just cut a 20-second promo. I mean,
and they even had Triple H come out, a couple days before, and says it will be explained and it will make total sense
in a unique way. He said something like, "Yeah, I'm not going to give away the ending of the movie." He totally made it seem like they were going to have some kind of an angle. Us as wrestling fans, we don't need a lot. We just need like a small "this is why." And then boom, it's like, okay, they told us that was why, that's part of it, boom, we move on. But when they don't give you anything like that, it's like, where was Roman Reigns? Like if you're
young on the screen, just the match, that was the only way they told you.
And you're younger, if you're a kid or something and you're a big Roman Reigns fan, you have no idea. Like, we obviously know a little bit more. We're on Twitter. We're in the bubble when it comes to wrestling stuff. We're reading, a lot of the blogs and different things here and there. But I didn't like that they didn't do anything more to let us know why this match was taking place. And it's fine. They wanted to get the belt off Goldberg. This was supposed to be where Roman was going to win, and they give it to Braun, which is fine. Braun has a built-in feud with Roman already. So whenever Roman comes back and they start, you can immediately kind of go into that feud, which is fine. But this was literally 2 minutes and 10 seconds. The next shortest match on the night was that pre-show match at 4 minutes, and then everything else was like pretty solid into the like 9-10 minute range. This was literally just finisher. Goldberg hit three spears?
4 spears and 5 slams is what it was.
Yep, that's literally what it was. And Braun Strowman's your new Universal Champ.
That's what you expect with Goldberg. I mean, it's always going to do a spear. You usually spears and it's over, but you knew that it was hard to beat Strowman with the spear. So I was disappointed the way they built it up too. I have no problem with Strowman winning, and I liked him when he won the last title, and I didn't like it when he lost it. But they rewarded him by giving him this one, so we'll see where they go with it.
Yeah, I'm fine with Strowman here. Same kind of thing. It's just I didn't like how they got to here, but you know what? It was, at least it was quick. It wasn't bad. It was just boom, 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 get it done, and then we move on. So new Universal Champion Braun Strowman. Up next, we got a promo for WrestleMania 37, which is actually in Los Angeles, and then we get the Boneyard match, which I think there were 2 matches that everybody's talking about coming out of the WrestleMania weekend, and they were both these matches that were very, very different. This one was a match. It was filmed like a movie. It really looked like kind of like an 80s horror movie. I thought it was I liked it a lot. I thought it was really, really well done. It was different. It worked so well for The Undertaker and his character because he's getting a little bit older. We don't really want to see The Undertaker go 20, 25 minutes in the ring anymore. It drags a little bit. He kind of misses his spots here and there. They were able to film this, edit this. I read that they filmed it basically overnight entirely, one evening with AJ and The Undertaker. This thing was awesome. I mean, there was shit talking all over. They were literally out in a cemetery like area. We got just a brawl. It wasn't a wrestling match. It was a brawl out there. And the best parts of this were just the little things that they were saying to each other. Undertaker calling him Alan, and AJ, I dug your grave. And this, I liked everything about this. We got some interaction from Gallows and Anderson. The Druids came in, and at the end, it looked like AJ had the advantage on the Undertaker. I mean, they're beating each other, throwing each other onto cars. There's a tractor. All these graves are dug. I mean, I'm not going to do it justice trying to explain this entire thing. This is one of those things you have to go back and watch, and it's a good it's just under 20 minutes. We get a little bit of the mystic Undertaker power stuff at the end, but there wasn't a whole lot of that throughout. It was more just a beating outside, and it was really, really well done. What did you think of this boneyard match?
You're saying it was under 20 minutes, but we could have gone another 5 or 6 minutes and be happy with it.
We would have loved it.
It wasn't too long. And the thing was, you mentioned about the pre-taping and the editing and everything. It took like over 8.5 hours, or they said, to film the match. So in that sense, you could give Undertaker time to take breaks and be at his best. Because I said, having him go for a 20 or 25-minute match, at his age, and he can't do that anymore. But to film it and cut it and look at it and see what they can do, they made it look perfect. I thought it was great from start to finish. It kept my interest the whole time. The music in the background was perfect. And, you kept waiting for police to drive up. It was that realistic where you thought it was like a movie you were talking about. But when the Undertaker came out of the grave and was standing behind AJ on the forklift or whatever, that was an incredible scene, just to get the feeling of what, you'd be like in a real graveyard, and all of a sudden this guy shows up behind you. I thought the match was perfect. I don't think it could have gone any better, and it's got a lot of accolades since then from a lot of people around the world too.
Yeah, and this is something, if they do it, we don't want to overdo it. If you can do this maybe a couple times a year for, in particular, this style, maybe for right now it's just Undertaker matches, and he could do matches this way for a while now, because it's, like you said, it's not going to drag in the ring with the way they were able to cut and edit. They filmed this over a long period of time. He can continue to take a little break. Let's film this scene. Boom, you come over here for 30 seconds, and then you're good. Like, he can be at his best. I could see him doing this style match for a while. We're already hearing a lot of old wrestlers like Mick Foley right away was like, hey, I want this. Yeah.
Can you imagine Cactus Jack in one of those matches?
Oh, yeah, that would be unbelievable. So, this is definitely something.
In a metal yard or something,
Yeah, this is something that I think I feel like they hit a home run with this one. And, overall, when we look back, especially the second half of night one, it was really good. And for me, when I watch any of these shows, it's more of, I don't need everything to hit a home run. I just don't want there to be a lot of bad. And there was not a lot of bad on this show.
No, any good show, you want it to build to a climax, and they did a good job at getting the good matches at the end, which of course you strive for, but that doesn't always work that way. But in this case, it really worked. And even though it got off to a little bit of a slow start, they had the women's tag match at the beginning, which was one of the better matches. Then it got a little slower in the middle, and then got real good at the end. It was really good planning by them.
Let's move to night two, where we had the kickoff match of Natalya versus Liv Morgan. And you know what? Natty's really good in the ring. She's like Bret, like the Hearts. She's just a good worker. She's always going to get a solid match out of anyone. I think these two knew they were just going to be going like 5-6 minutes, and so they worked pretty hard, and it was not a bad match to get things started. Finished at 6:25. Liv Morgan actually gets the win, and this is a big one for her. She's got a little bit of a tweak in her look recently. She's someone who, a few years ago, you could tell they were really high on her when she was in NXT, and she was like a real spunky baby face, kind of wearing Jordans, and she's come a long way in her work and her look since then too. And this was a fine way to get things started.
I really hope they had, about 6 months ago, they had a lot of strong women in their division, and then over the time, it's just came down to just a few of them they actually could win their titles. And a lot of them kind of went into different directions with their storylines. They weren't getting much action on Raw and SmackDown. But it looks like they're trying to get more of the women involved again in some bigger matches, so that you get some role going on some of them. And I think that's what they did with her, and maybe getting her a little push. That would be good.
And then we got to the show, and it was the same like opening. Stephanie came out again with a little opening package, and then we got the same pirate themed video. Gronkowski came in and welcomed us again, very similar to night one. But we kicked off this match with this actual main card of WrestleMania night 2 with Charlotte Flair versus Rhea Ripley. This match was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I'm a big Charlotte fan. And I've been a big Rhea Ripley fan since she debuted a couple years ago in one of the tournaments in NXT, the Mae Young Classic. And you could tell right away she kind of had the look that Vince would like. She was tall, she could go, she looked good, she just has it, whatever that it is. These two went at it. I loved it. I had a couple people sending me messages saying they thought this was the best women's match they've ever seen. And I think there were probably ones when you stop and think and make lists that were better, but I think it shows you how good this match was, to where some people that don't watch a lot of women's matches you could at least put this in the conversation and have a conversation with it. I loved it. It went back and forth, and I can't wait to see these two get back in the ring again.
I think it was Ripley's coming out moment, because people who really didn't see her very much in NXT, she sold this match perfectly. Looked like she was in a lot of pain. I mean, she really every hit she took from Charlotte looked like it was a devastating blow, and she battled on. It was a long match, as you mentioned, which was really good, and she had a tap out, it was an okay ending, because she didn't get pinned and she didn't get devastated. It shows that she can compete with Charlotte and be right there with her all the way through. And I think they got big plans for her coming up, because I'd like to see her more action from her. And
some people were upset that Charlotte won this match and she lost, and I think a lot of that had to do with you hit it. I don't think, and it may have been because of what's happened the last few weeks and because of the shows having been different and the virus and everything going on. She hasn't really been built enough to the mainstream WWE audience to get this win quite yet. And if she gets the win over Charlotte right now, who many people talk about as the best women's wrestler of all time, and she'll probably go down at least in the conversation, then kind of what else do you have to go for, at that point? So I think this worked out great. This is one of those things where you're a star in defeat as much as you are in winning this match. I thought both women came out of this match incredible, and I can't wait to see where they're going with both, because Rhea is a star, and I'm big on Charlotte. She really steps up in like these big match situations.
And I also heard afterward, I don't know how true it is, but with the break possibly coming up, we're not sure how much you're going to get from wrestling for the next 2 months until the crowds start coming back. But they wanted a lot of baby faces to have the titles, so they can go around and do the tours and do the interviews. And Charlotte is Miss WWE, so she would be the perfect one to go around right now, being the NXT champion, and do all the interviews for everybody and get all the accolades and everything, when Rhea Ripley, nobody really knows her that well to be the face for WWE right now.
Yep. This was fun. And this was a great start. They went 20 minutes and 30 seconds here. Really good way to kick off the show. Up next, we have Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley. This one kind of came out of nowhere. There are a few matches on the card that are kind of random, and I think a lot of that had to do with, hey, we're at the Performance Center right now. We're going to just tape this match because these matches were all taped early. We're going to just tape this match and put it on WrestleMania because you guys are here right now, and we don't know what the travel situation is going to be like coming up. So it was smart to do that with a few of these matches. This was one of them. This match ended up going 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Both of these guys can hit. They can take hits. They can go at it. There were some really good strikes in here, and this was solid. It was solid for a 7-minute match.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with Bobby Lashley. They've been kind of up and down with him in his storyline and everything, especially with Lana. And she's a big wrestler now. She hasn't been wrestling much and everything, but they're setting up a divorce angle. You can probably see that coming. But Aleister Black is one of the prime guys. He has only lost, 2 matches since he's been in WWE.
Yep.
You kind of figured that, he was going to win the match, but I always like watching Lashley out there. So there was a good little match for the two of them, even though it wasn't very long.
Yeah, they're kind of waiting for the right moment to push the button with Aleister Black. And what they're doing with him, it's better doing what they're doing with him than to put you into a storyline and then where they don't have really a plan for it and then end up having you lose and get shuffled back down. You're seeing him on TV every week. He's in a lot of these squash matches, or he's in matches where, he's able to showcase his moveset and kind of get people the opportunity to get to know him a little bit. And I like this build. When they do this with guys like they did it with Ryback a few years back, they did it with Braun Strowman even when he was kind of just beating the jobbers and the enhancement talent for a little while. It keeps you on TV. I mean, you can't do it forever, but you can do it for a while to keep you out there and keep letting people see you, and kind of they don't think of you in a negative or an unimportant type way.
Right. Remember when he first came to WWE from NXT, he was with Ricochet in a tag team.
Yeah.
And he got hurt. And then they went off singles with Ricochet and made him, made his run while Aleister Black was hurt. Now when Black came back, he's come back as this unbeatable force, which, he's a great wrestler in the ring. They've only had him lose a couple of times with some key people, but obviously you can tell he's title destined. I mean, he's going to win a title somewhere down the line. We're not sure which one it is.
We then get to Michael Cole, JBL, and up next it's Gronk's on the perch with Caruso, Charlie Caruso. He says he wouldn't mind winning the WWE 24/7 title before the night is over. So we know that's going to happen at some point later on in the show. And then we get Otis versus Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler comes out with Sonya Deville. And this just reminded me of something from like the late 80s, early 90s. It was a lot of fun. It was corny. You know, it's the whole angle with Otis is the big guy who's got a crush on Mandy, and but Mandy was kind of interested in Dolph. And then we find out all along it was kind of Sonya that was pushing that narrative. Mandy actually does like Otis a little bit. She comes out in the match, helps Otis, gets the save. She ends up hitting Dolph Ziggler in the nuts, and Dolph goes down. Otis gets the win. He gets the girl. He gets the kiss. This was a lot of fun.
It was totally predictable, but still fun to watch. You know, I mean, you knew after the video package the night before they found out what really happened. You knew she was going to come out and she was going to save him. You knew he was going to win. You knew he was going to get the girl. It was still great the way they did it, and just great to see that actually happen. In fact, the two of them went on Instagram together yesterday. I didn't get a chance to see it, but they were live together on Instagram. Mandy and Otis, kind of keeping the premise alive that they're actually going to be a couple for a while.
And this should be fun. Vince is always there's always been rumors that Vince likes Mandy a lot. He likes her look. He's really high on her. And if she gets like a good little mid-card babyface run with Otis for a while before she inevitably turns on him and goes somewhere else, that's fine. You know, that it could set up for a little while. So this will be fun for a little bit. I hope I like Otis. He's a good character, and not everybody has to be one look, and we've seen that in the last decade or so. It's great with someone like Otis who can get a babyface run here.
I love Otis, but the tag team with Tucker, I like them too. But you never figure what they're going to do with them. They always win a couple matches, and they always lose in the match to get to the title match. So I don't think they're going to make them be title contenders, but they're always fun to watch. The crowd loves Otis, and he's really a crowd favorite for sure.
Up next, we get, I think, a match that most people were probably looking forward to, maybe the most of the whole weekend, and it wasn't bad in any way. It was very intense. It was really, really good. With a good start with Orton dressed up as the cameraman, and he comes out from behind and he gets the RKO right away on Edge, and then the match. It was just a real fight. It was slow, and to me, it was 36 minutes. I think if it would have been 25 minutes, it would have been better, because it would have meant a little bit more, and they could have like sped things up just a little bit. Nothing bad about it. I understand what they did and why they went, but it just felt like a little too long.
This is one of that match that surprised me, because I thought going into it that they were going to have. I mean, it was set up for Edge to win the whole time with the comeback and getting hurt. But then I kind of thought that they were going to save him winning for the crowd pop, because he was brought in for a crowd pop. The crowd would have gone crazy with him winning the match. So with the crowd not there, I thought maybe, they're going to have Orton win again and drag this along a little longer till we get back to the crowds. But during the match, there were 3 or 4 times where you realized it could have stopped right there. And you would have been, okay, that's good.
Yep.
But just kept going on. And how many times was one guy laying down? The referee wasn't even counting. He just kind of silence. And the announcers were just not saying anything half the time. So, the more it drag on, the more you kind of thinking, okay, let's get this over with. But it was a lot of great spots by them together.
Yeah, and ends with the concerto at the end, and so there were, you meant good way of putting it. Lots of good spots. I just wish they would have trimmed this up, especially with the ability of the editing, right? Yeah. Like especially with if this match, and I don't know if you watched the NXT stuff the other day, but there was a Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa match that was just filmed recently, and it was like very similar to this kind of a feud. But it was filmed like the Boneyard match, more of. It was in the ring, in an empty arena, but I think if they would have filmed it like differently, with some cuts, with a little more editing, with a little different to it. I loved the creativity of going all around the arena, not staying in the ring. I like that. I thought that was really cool. And there were some things to like, but I definitely was disappointed. Like, I was more hyped for this match than any match going into the weekend, and it was just kind of there.
It kind of just slowed the whole weekend down.
It did. You're right.
we talked about how every match led into the other one, and they did little promos in between them. The kids, this one was so long and drawn out that you kind of lost interest in what was going on. You were okay, when's it going to end? When's it going to end? And like I said, there were 3 or 4 times where there was just dead air for 10, 15 seconds, and they could have cut a lot of that out with the time that they did it, since they had done way ahead of time. But they said they were happy with it, so we'll go with it.
We get Rob Gronkowski up on the perch inside the Performance Center, and everyone's chasing Mojo, the 24/7 champ, around. And then there's a big spot where Gronk jumps off the perch. He takes everyone down, and he covers Mojo to become the new 24/7 champion.
That'll probably last about a week. And then we'll get our truth back for the 483rd time being the champion or something. But it's fun. It's fun to see Gronk get involved in that, and they're going to have so much fun with him and that title. Keep going forward. I'm sure they got more plans for that.
So this next match was another one of these kind of that just was put together kind of last minute. Austin Theory and Angel Garza versus Street Profits. All these guys can go, though. So, if you're going to get a real quick 6-minute match, it's not bad at all. And this was more of, for I think, the debut of Bianca Belair, who was really, really good at the women's Royal Rumble. She looks like she's up now on the main roster. She's actually married to Montez Ford. Yep, and she comes out as after the match. The Selena Vega and Garza and Theory were attacking and beating down the Street Profits, and that's when Bianca Belair comes out for the save, and then we've seen her now up on Raw. So this was a fine little 6-minute match, and I think it was more of the angle giving away for Bianca to debut on the main roster.
Yeah, because even the next night on Raw, she got involved again, and in fact, singles match, and then in the 3-way match. So, Bianca's a good performer in NXT. I think it's the right time for her to come up. Coming up with her husband, Montez Ford is perfect because they have a chemistry together. And Montez Ford to me is just very entertaining to watch. People say he gets a little overboard sometimes with his antics, but he has so much fun out there. It's infectious, because his partner is not much action. He's not very exciting to watch, but Montez just gets everybody going. So I think having the titles on them, which was a little quick, I thought, since they just basically came up not too long ago, but I think they've earned their spot to be the title holders. I think they're going to do well.
We then see Titus O'Neil, who says he's going to be the new WrestleMania 36 host now that Gronk is unable to host since he's the 24/7 champ. And we get a fatal 5-way elimination match for the SmackDown Women's title. It's Sasha Banks versus Naomi versus Lacey Evans versus Tamina versus Bayley, who is the champ. And this match ended up going 19 minutes. It's an elimination match, so they all get eliminated one at a time. Up first was Tamina, and they kind of did the spot where everybody looks over and teams up on Tamina. They all hit their big spots, and then they all pile on Tamina and eliminate her for the pin. Naomi ends up tapping out to the bank statement, so then she's gone. So then it's down to the 3 with Lacey Evans, Sasha Banks, and Bayley. And you know what? They did a good swerve in that. At this point, I and probably a lot of people assumed it would end up Bayley and Sasha as your final 2, and then kick forward a storyline with them, battling over the women's championship, which it still might be going forward. But in fact, Sasha gets eliminated by Lacey Evans, and she goes back for a moment. So Bayley and Lacey are finishing this thing out, but then Sasha comes back in the ring. She helps Bayley get the W here. Bayley ends up winning this at 19 minutes and 20 seconds.
I think this whole thing was set up to start this feud with Bayley and Sasha, because you can see it coming. They're making it obvious. She's looking at the title and she's playing second fiddle to her best friend and getting no action from it. I felt really bad though for Lacey Evans. I like Lacey Evans. I think she's done a great job.
She's good, yeah.
She was losing every match, to Becky, and all of a sudden now she's getting into her own, where she's the hero of the service and all the things she's done in the past. And I think she's going to be a title holder at some point, but I think the Sasha Bayley feud could be one for the ages, because those both are so good in the ring together. It's going to draw out for a little while, but I think it's definitely going to end up with Sasha beating her eventually for the title.
So then we get the Firefly Funhouse match. John Cena versus the Fiend Bray Wyatt. We don't know anything about what this match is going to be, what a Firefly Funhouse match is. We just know that Bray Wyatt shows up in the Firefly Funhouse segments all the time, and we see him in there. So John Cena comes out to the ring and just his normal self. He looks like he's ready for a match, and then he's quickly interrupted, and he's he's in the Firefly Funhouse. Bray Wyatt appears, and Bray Wyatt talks about how there's another realm. It's filled with monsters, and he tells Cena that he's about to face his most dangerous opponent himself. And this is being filmed very much just like a movie, kind of like but it's cutting around, and there's all sorts of different, cuts to things in the year, John Cena's all throughout his career, his debut, all different things in the past. We see Abby the Witch and Ramblin' Rabbit, and they tell John Cena why it went that way through a door. John Cena opens the door, and now we see the evil Vince McMahon boss puppet that appears. I'm sure if you're just listening to the descriptions of this, you're like, what the hell is this guy saying? But honestly, go back and watch this. This is another one that you will always be talked about. This was I loved it too. I mean, I really like what they did here. It was super creative. We've seen John Cena and Bray Wyatt go for 15, 20 minutes in the ring, and it's fine. This was way different. They wanted to take a chance here. I know a lot of people didn't like this one, but then some really did like it. I was on the side of being super positive. I mean, you go through all of John Cena's history. There's John Cena dressed up in an NWO. There's just all sorts of different weird things that trying to describe this like the Boneyard match, it just won't do it justice enough to tell you, go seek this out and find it. It ends up going 13 minutes. The Fiend wins this match, and then we cut to Titus O'Neil saying he has no idea what the hell he just saw.
I felt the same way, because the thing is, since I was out of wrestling for 4 or 5 years, a lot of those John Cena references I didn't get when I was watching it, because I don't remember that, because I wasn't really following wrestling all that much then. So to me, I was like, what are they doing? And afterward realized that they were going through his career, but at the time I didn't catch that, because I wasn't really watching Cena much over the years. But I do need to go back and watch it back again, because now that I know that, I will enjoy it more. But I was like Titus, like, what did we just see? It was very creative, very innovative. But to me, it was just kind of.
It wasn't a match. I mean, there's no work. There's nothing going on. It's basically like a trip through this guy, and you could tell what just fascinating is, like, when you watch it all, I mean, you could tell that I love that Cena was was down with all of this, because he was down to recreate all of it. Cena out in the ring in his same gear when he was called the Prototype, and he did he came out, and one of the first things we remember was when Kurt Angle had a challenge, and Bray Wyatt cuts the entire Kurt Angle promo from that episode of SmackDown. Everything is like verbatim. It's well done. If you're someone who's watched for a long time and you can pick up on a lot of these Easter eggs, you'll appreciate it. But from what you said, I'm surprised they did something that's a little bit, quote unquote, this deep in a WrestleMania setting, when there were a lot of people that are watching, especially in this era, were probably just flipping this on and didn't know what all of this stuff meant.
Exactly. And I heard that, Bray Wyatt came up with a lot of the ideas for it, but you can see why Cena would go in for it, because he's at the end of his career. He hasn't done much wrestling at all, and put him through a match with Bray Wyatt, and an actual match would have probably been hard to do, because, he hasn't been that active lately. But for him to actually go back and kind of go through his career that way, I'm sure that's why he looks so good doing it, because I'm sure he enjoyed embracing that.
We close things out with the WWE title match. It is Drew McIntyre versus Brock Lesnar. I thought since the Royal Rumble, they've done a really good job with Drew, with building him up. He won the Rumble. They made him seem, like a legitimate contender to Brock Lesnar. And this was, again, how a lot of these main event matches have been that are involving, Brock or Goldberg or someone like that. They're not long. There are a lot of finishing moves back and forth. This one went only 4:35. Now, this match was much better than the Goldberg Braun Strowman match. Like, these guys are going at it, and it feels like a little bit more than a 4-minute match when you're watching it. And there is some back and forth, and obviously with Heyman at the side of the ring, screaming and everything. But Drew does get his moment. Drew McIntyre gets the win. He is the new WWE champion.
And you can see that building. I mean, a lot of times what WWE does is they'll have a guy dominate for a while up to a big match, and then they'll lose the match.
And they lose everything.
Yeah. Drew was being dominant against Brock the last few times you saw them, and are they building that up to have Brock just squash him at the thing? But Drew is a worthy champion. He's put in his time. He's been in the company for a long time. And for him to build his way up there, get to that moment, and then succeed and surpass what people might have thought might happen was just great for him. And like this one moment where even there was no crowd, he looked at that title like, all these years I've been trying for this, and it looked like it was about ready to cry over it. It was great emotion from him to be in that moment at that time.
So what were some of your final overall thoughts of the two nights?
Well, I enjoyed both nights immensely. I thought they did a great job. And there's a stat going around, and you can take it for what it's worth because of the fact that everybody was at home, but they said it broke a record for the most social media interactions in a single WWE history. For one event, it was 13.8 million interactions between Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, which is a 57% increase over last year. But again, everybody was home. They're all watching online, so you expect that. But it just goes to show that how much people were talking about it as it was going on. They were going on Facebook, going on Twitter, going on Instagram, saying, look at this, did you see that? Whether they liked it or not, they were talking about it. And when you're in WWE, you want them to keep talking about you, and that's what they were accomplished.
Don, this was a lot of fun. Enjoyed going back and forth, talking about all these matches with you. Before we let you go, let the folks out there know, once again, where can we find you online, on social media, on your blog? Give us your plugs.
Well, I have a blog going. I just started up called The Dawn of Sports Blog at .wordpress.com. That's the Dawn of Sports Blog.wordpress.com. Talk about whatever sports I feel like talking about. I like to do little stories about local people. Next week, I'm going to be doing a story actually on an indie wrestler who's trying to make his way up to WWE, so that should be kind of fun to do.
Nice.
My Facebook is Don August, and my Instagram is Don_August_300. So you can pick me up on any of those three.
Don, thank you so much, and really look forward to bringing you back again. We'll have to do this again with some wrestling, some racing, anything in the world of sports. I know you'll be down to talk about a lot of different things, so I look forward to having you back.
Anytime, Jimmy. Do a great job.
Thanks a lot. That's Don August there. You heard the way to get in touch with him if you ever want to follow along. Let's take a quick break here from one of our sponsors, and we'll be back on That's What G Said. One of the sponsors of That's What G Said podcast is Cindy Carava, full-service realtor, and I am here over in Glendora at Coldwell Banker with Cindy Carava. Cindy, how was 2019 for you? Tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff you were working on.
Hi, Gino. Thanks for having me. 2019 was just really great. I had a great year selling homes all the way from Altadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, out to Upland and Ontario just recently. The market has been really good. We're looking forward to 2020 with an increase in home prices about 5.8% this year, opposed to last year where it was a little softer. We saw more like homes averaging about 3.5% in increase in value. It's also looking great for buyers. The interest rates right now are going to be staying under 4%. So if you've been on the fence about thinking about buying a home, now is the time to do so with interest rates still staying low.
And you offer more services than just the buying, selling, and leasing homes. Tell us about some of the other services that you offer and what a full-service realtor really is.
So you're right, Gino. Besides me being a full-service realtor of finding properties for my clients to buy or selling their homes or finding rentals for them, I also have a plethora of resources like handyman, contractors, electricians, plumbers. I even, if you're thinking about getting a home loan, I actually work with 2 great lenders that I can recommend to anybody.
And you're all over the internet, social media, websites. Let us know some of the places where we can find you. I know I've seen some reviews on Yelp and on Zillow. Everyone always has positive things to say. Everybody hears me raving about you all the time. But where can everyone else find out information about you or contact?
Thank you, Gino. Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And you can contact me on my website, which is www.cindycarava.com, or my email, which is cindyc.realtor@gmail.com, or feel free to call or text me on my cell phone, which is 626-394-6400.
Cindy is awesome. She's one of the kindest and most genuine people I've ever met. I promise you, you will enjoy every minute you interact with her. So thank you very much, Cindy. Appreciate all of your support from That's What G Said podcast.
Thank you, Gino. Have a great day, everyone.
And a big thank you to Don. Give him a follow. Check out his blog. We'll have him back to talk more wrestling and more sports. And hey, hey, while we're on the wrestling front, let's just jump right into Chad the Party Hooper Cooper. He's back. We're going to talk Monday Night Raw. He'll give us some thoughts on WrestleMania, but then we jump into a full recap of Monday Night Raw. We get you a full recap of NXT from Wednesday, which was really good, and then we get you a recap of All Elite Wrestling from Wednesday also. So Chad Cooper here going to close things out on That's Back to talk wrestling. It was a big week in the world of wrestling. Not only did we have a WrestleMania, but then Monday Night Raw. We also had NXT and AEW on Wednesday night, and NXT had a couple matches that would have been on TakeOver if there were a TakeOver this year. So lots to discuss with Chad Cooper. Cooper Loop, my man. How's everything going in your neck of the woods?
Hey, it's going well, adjusting to society, but as you mentioned, another great week of wrestling, and it seems like it was months ago that we had WrestleMania, but we're within a week, but good stuff.
Okay, before we get into Raw, let's just give me some big picture WrestleMania thoughts. Like, what are some of the things that stood out to you from those couple nights?
Well, number one, I enjoyed the 2 nights.
Oh, I love the format.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that's something we get in the future. I know that NXT does their takeover that weekend, and I know there's a ton of indie promotions that build around WrestleMania weekend, and that could take away from that. But I love the format. Of course, look, the live audience, was a bummer, but I thought we saw some great matches, and I mean, the WWE just outdid themselves with these cinematic matches, from the Firefly Funhouse to the Boneyard match. I mean, it was what you could ask for without actually getting the pyro and the 80,000 fans, of course, that rush and the oohs and ahs. But, it seems like when you watch WrestleMania, even from the comforts of your own home on that Sunday, it seems like, you start watching the pre-show, which is 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and by 8, 9 o'clock, when you
it's dragging.
3-4 matches,
it's dragging.
Like going, I did not get this. I did not get this.
Les got lost in the shuffle here.
Sure.
It makes, because in that 7-hour show, we love wrestling. I'm glad there's a lot of content. There's a lot of wrestling, more wrestling. That's great. More things for us to watch, but when it's all in one night and it's drags, you could feel in the building, you could see the people start to drag, in the middle of those really, really long, epic, like, stadium shows. They booked these shows really well. Everything was very quick. There wasn't a lot of drag in between the matches. And you know what? Looking back and watching it again over the last couple days, there wasn't really a whole lot of bad on either show.
No, and I liked the part that these matches didn't feel rushed, and they actually got to tell a story.
Yes.
And there was a lot of guys and girls that would normally get buried in a battle royal or some kind of gimmick match. I thought they had ample enough time to tell their stories in these matches. And so it was a job well done. I really, really liked it. Not necessarily, this match should have been on this day. I had no complaints. I really, really enjoyed it. And like I said, that Boneyard and the Firefly match was just icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, just to piggyback your point, the women's tag match got a good amount of time. That was good.
Sure.
They got 15 minutes. Zayn and D-Bry, they only went 10, but that's still like more of the story. The last 5 minutes of that match really picked up. Morrison, Uso, Kofi, that match got 18 minutes. That match was great. KO and Seth Rollins, they gave that thing, 17 minutes plus. And then we got the Boneyard match for 19 minutes. So those matches, especially like the KO match and that ladder match and the women's tag match, there is no way in hell those matches are getting 15 minutes plus on a regular Mania.
No. And, they're rushed, and KO and Seth would have been rushed. The women's tag match would have probably been rushed, and they had great spots.
Awesome.
And for what it's worth, and the tag team match, of course, we would like to see all those tag teams in it. But what they did with those 3 guys was amazing work. And that was one of my favorite matches. That probably was, outside of the cinematic matches, that was probably the match that did it for me.
I think so too.
Morrison is just amazing.
Yeah, that second half of night one really started to pick up a little bit. I mean, the women, Charlotte and Rhea, both stars. Oh, I mean, that was just incredible. I had a couple people send me messages. They said, "Was that the best women's match I've ever seen?" And I said, well, "The fact that you're saying it, and I don't think you're crazy. You might be able to dig and find some that you like more or that are better, but this was a damn good match between two really, really good performers. We got the fun spot with Otis, and Ziggler.
Yeah.
Like there was enough to me that still felt like WrestleMania moments on these shows."
Yeah, and I know there was some negative Nancy's out there, oh, this shouldn't have happened. It's, I thought it was perfect.
I did too. It was needed.
And it was classy. There wasn't anything like, oh, come on, why are y'all doing this? Why is this doing this? And it was great for social media for
we
both
didn't get
nights.
The Undertaker tombstoning a wrestler named Coronavirus.
Exactly right. Exactly. And it was just perfect the way they did it. And we you and I talked, weeks up leading to WrestleMania, and they couldn't have scripted it better. Yep. It was amazing.
It was. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was great. And so applause to them as we move on to Monday Night Raw, which, it's unfortunate too, because this is one of those big Raws where you get a lot of debuts and a lot of story, and they were kind of handcuffed in, I think they didn't want to get too ahead of themselves with things coming right out of WrestleMania and like put them kind of book themselves into different corners. But we got Asuka Liv Morgan to start. Asuka gets the win. They went for a little while, and I like Liv's a little bit of a tweak that she's got. She's improved quite a bit from a few years back on when she was on NXT. She's much better in the ring now.
Yeah, and it helps her not being in the Riot Squad. I know they were probably hiding some flaws of hers, but now that she's on her own. Number one, if you know anything about Liv Morgan, she loves professional wrestling. So if you love it, that's half the battle. And she is getting better and better. And I love the gimmick, and I love the outfit that they have with her. And I was okay, her losing with Asuka, but it wasn't a squash match. And, last year that would have been. Liv Morgan, she was in squash matches. She wasn't taken serious. She had the turquoise tongue and, this look and that look. She's becoming more of a serious wrestler, and I think fans are starting to respect that even more.
We then got a few different iterations of matches with the Street Profits and Bianca Belair against Zelina Vega and the tag match from the night before, Garza and
Austin Theory
and Theory, which, I mean, all these guys can go. They work really well, and I think both at Mania and this has been a little bit more of like giving Bianca the opportunity for a spot for her to debut, because I think they're really high on her.
Oh, she's legitimately good. Even in NXT, you could just see it was a matter of time. She has the persona, she has the look, she has the crowd. Her being on Monday Night Raw, and it also, it freshens up this women's division a little bit. With Charlotte taking the NXT title, we don't know if that's going to be on Raw, SmackDown as well. Who knows? Or maybe it just stays on NXT on Wednesday nights. But she deserves to be on the main roster at Raw, and it gives it a little something extra. And she's one heck of an athlete. She can work.
We then got a match that I guess it only seems out of place if it was just kind of random. I'm a big Apollo Crews fan. I would love if they were able to get behind him a little bit. They've kind of done the similar things with him that they've done with Cedric, where it's like they seem like they're giving them at least some TV time for a few weeks, and then we don't see them for a long time. But this was like Apollo Crews' I think longest match on the main roster for sure. He had some good ones in NXT. It was Aleister Black versus Apollo. Both these guys looked really good. I mean, this was a good match. It was just I hope we get to see a little bit more from Apollo, and that this wasn't just because he was there at the Performance Center and they needed someone to fill some time.
Right. We know how good Aleister Black is. A lot of people for the first time got to see how good Apollo Crews is.
Yes.
That was a great match.
It was.
And it got a lot of time. And again, he's not involved with Titus and some kind of gimmicky matches and, thrown out there for this. And like you said, hoping he wasn't just around or he was available. Even if he was, he had his moment, and he can only, the sky's the limit for this guy. I like Apollo. I think he's better as a singles as to compare to putting him in some sort of stable or a tag team or some kind of gimmick fraternity type deal. I think that was a match for him to show what he had, and he did. And I expect some better booking from him in the near future, because he is legitimately one of the rising stars on that roster.
We got a fun tag match after with Cedric and Ricochet, which, hey, you know what? If you're not going to do anything with either of those two, and you give them, when you put them together, and if you can always get a good 15 minutes out of these guys on TV if you need, right? Like, this could be like a weekly thing where you let these two guys come out and at least like help get you through some of the time that you need to fill right now. Both of these guys are unbelievable. You know what? Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch are great too. Like, they're a real fun, hard-hitting team. If this same exact match took place in front of a full crowd at NXT, it would tear the house down.
Oh, that would have been crazy. That match would have been, match of the month type honors.
Yep.
Ricochet and Cedric, they can both go. And then when you put a tag team, like you said, as mentioned, it's very, very physical, that has that heel presence and has that look. And Ricochet, with his new look, he shaved his beard, as Booker T mentioned on WWE Backstage. He likes, he knows Ricochet's getting more serious now without the beard. I thought it was fun and well placed, and I wouldn't mind seeing those two guys team together in the near future and take a run at the tag titles.
Up next was just a Rollins squash. He was upset. Sure. This is fine. This is something good. They used to do a lot more of this. And I'm fine with doing this after a big show. You had two, of your top level performers go out there. One of them loses. Let's make him look strong, the next night afterwards. And it's not by going over Kevin Owens. Then, this is better than the 50-50 type thing that they would normally do. Just let him come out and crush someone.
Yeah, and you know what I like? Sometimes, of course, the Raw after Mania is always big. There's anticipation. There's going to be some debuts. There's going to be some roster changes. There's going to be this and that. But you also, on that Raw after Mania, you also kind of get some rematches from the night before, as you just said.
You're right. We did it.
This could have been another KO match with him, and him going over KO, and it's just like, no, this was perfect. Get him in there for a squash. Make him look strong. And that was the one thing I really, really liked, that we didn't have all these unneeded rematches from the previous night with either the exact same ending or a DQ or the other person going over, because that kills their Mania moment.
It just doesn't do a whole lot for either person.
Correct.
This was good. Sometimes you just need a little something like this. This was good booking. This was felt like a little old school type thing. Seth gets the quick win. He looks strong, and that's fine. And then we get Nia Jax making her return to the Raw. I think this is going to be some good fresh blood into the women's division, because it felt like for a while towards the top it's kind of been the same, maybe 4 or 5. And if you can kind of inject Nia in there, I think that always freshens things up a little bit. She's kind of got some built-in stuff already with Becky, if that's a direction they want to go. She had a match against Deonna Purrazzo here. She gets the quick win. It's just to kind of remind you Nia's here and Nia's back.
And a new finisher, right? Paige.
Yeah, she's got Paige's old finisher. Yeah, the scoop DDT, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I another perfect match to bring her back, to give her a good match. Deonna, is a young star in NXT. I was okay with that. I'm not the biggest Nia Jax fan, but it's much needed. Again, another new face to bring back, even though she's been in the WWE for a while, but she's been out with knee injuries. Good to see somebody back, a heel type character.
Yeah, just kind of injecting her and Bianca right away kind of gives you a whole different, when you start thinking about all the different combinations you can have there, it really feels like there are going to be a lot of fresh matchups. So that looks good. Then we got a quick Humberto Carrillo, Brendan Vink. I think this was just another one of those, hey, a couple guys that are around here, go out, give us a match that we can tape and we can throw on there for a few minutes when we need.
Yeah, I like Humberto. I mean, he's good. He's good. It's good to see him not working the same guys. I know he's had certain programs with certain WWE stars, and that's a new thing. Another thing, once you get past Mania, you start writing new chapters now, and not necessarily with this, because we're in a strange time, because we really don't know which direction that WWE or AEW are going to go with as restrictions get tighter on states that they're taping in. But it's good to see some of these guys work different people than they have worked over the last, several months, because they're working on them on the road too. So I like Humberto. He's got a big upside.
So we look at now Charlotte, and she comes out and it's a promo that Charlotte cut backstage after winning the WrestleMania 36 match. Which direction do you think they're going to go with Charlotte and this NXT championship?
Well, that's interesting, because does she stay on Wednesday nights? Does she bring that title to Monday nights or Friday nights? Just don't know. We'll get to NXT. What happened this week is they had the number one contenders ladder match, which I thought was fantastic.
Awesome.
I thought that had great spots. I did think the crowd not being there hurt that match a little bit.
I felt bad for some of the women, because they would have gotten such a reaction in there.
Yeah. But in seeing the winner of that, that's probably just, to give Charlotte, an opponent over the next couple of weeks, right? Because I don't think that's anybody serious. So, maybe she elevates that title and it does go to Raw or SmackDown. And, they have numerous ways to go with that title. If they keep it on Wednesday nights, I understand, but I do see them bringing her to Friday nights with that belt. I don't think she's going to be stuck on Wednesday nights.
She might be able to pull double duty for a little while,
Sure.
where she's on Wednesdays and she's on Fridays, like to give a little injection to the Wednesday night. And we said with some of the new women that are coming up, they have a lot of options now with Charlotte. I like this. It's just a little bit different. And I think eventually at some point, whether it be for this title or for, the SmackDown or the Raw Women's title, like Rhea will get that win over Charlotte eventually. She'll get that back. They'll have a good feud. They'll continue on. And I think that's kind of what we've all circled and maybe put in the back of our minds to look forward to again somewhere down the road. And then we close things out. This was kind of cool. I kind of like what they did here. This was a little bit different. So they tell us that we're looking back at the main event where Drew McIntyre wins the title from Brock Lesnar the night before at WrestleMania. And they show us that after the match, Drew was in the ring. He was getting interviewed. And the interview gets interrupted by the Big Show. And the Big Show comes out and he's in his ring gear. Now, I think a lot of this had to do with the fact that the Big Show has a show on Netflix that just came out called The Big Show on Friday, which I made Stephanie watch an episode, like 2 episodes with me, which it is so corny. It's so bad, but it's just, throw it on in the background if you've got kids. I think Milo enjoyed watching it. But this was, it was WrestleMania 9, but they did the right thing. Like the winner didn't go over here. It was almost like Hogan comes out after the match, he wins the title. Big Show is coming out, trying to take advantage of Drew having just wrestled Brock, trying to, kind of take advantage of Drew's ego and say, hey, let's do it right now. And so Drew didn't want to fight him, but Big Show had to smack him, and Drew finally says, okay, we'll go at it. And they have a little match that they had basically used as the main event of Monday Night Raw. You know what? I like that they're trying different things. They didn't just say that this is happening live right now. They even went through the whole "this happened last night" kind of thing, which it was cool.
I loved it, and it's better than having your night after coronation party, right?
Yes.
You get the same balloons and bells and whistles, and then you get a challenger or somebody comes out. I thought it was handled well, and I think it was a perfect WrestleMania moment to even solidify how legit good that Drew McIntyre not only is, but what he can be with this belt. And I was perfect. I was fine with that. I know some people said, oh, it's a little bit corny. Why are they doing it? I thought it was great. The way he overcame Brock Lesnar, and then his WrestleMania moment was not only winning the title, but afterwards headlining and main eventing the next night Raw, because it was a match after Brock Lesnar. That was genius planning, and that just shows you how good the WWE really is, because we knew they had to pull out all the stops to make this work, and I think they did.
And we critique them, and plenty of people critique them, and there's things that they swing and miss on a lot of the time. They haven't done that with Drew. This has been good, what I like too is we generally get, like, a lot of times when somebody wins the title, it seems like their first feud would always be like the Big Show or Kane, like one of them, like a real safe one. This kind of just gets that out of the way real quick, right?
Yes.
Like, I don't expect this to be like an elongated type feud. It was kind of like, hey, Big Show's back. He's going to call you out. You get him out of the way, which is great. It's like he's still a credible name to get the win over. You get Big Show a little bit of buzz for his TV show that's out there. It works kind of, it serves a double purpose for everyone, you know? So, I mean, I thought that WWE did a good job this week. They really did. And then we're going to move to Wednesday. And I thought they did a damn good job on Wednesday night too, with a couple of these matches. And in particular, one that you have already referenced. We kick things off with the women's ladder match. You know Chelsea Green pretty well. You've taken pictures and you've done some of her indie stuff, right?
Oh yeah, big fan of hers, and of course I was wanting her to win. I love the spot with Robert Stone getting involved on the ladder. You know, he's just one of those guys.
Good old Robbie E.
Yeah. You love to hate this guy. There was some great spots. I'm okay with the winner. Like I said, it really could have used that live crowd to get behind this group because they deserved it. But man, what a way to kick off NXT! I thought it was well done. They got great time. They each had their moments and their spots. I was a little upset that Chelsea Green didn't win, but I'm okay with the turnout.
Especially if this is just going to be maybe feed someone to Charlotte.
And you know what it is, you know what it is.
Because I don't think whoever's winning this and like facing Charlotte's going to win immediately. So at least hopefully when they get behind Chelsea, maybe they'll be getting behind her to kind of give her the go. So yeah, Io Shirai gets the win here, and she's your new number one contender. We then are looking back and seeing a lot of the build-up with Finn Balor and Imperium and the Walter stuff. We see a match against Alexander Wolf, and then we get a little promo from Finn. So, I mean, these are two guys that are really great. These are two guys that, you know, if this was like main roster stuff, this would be, I mean, they could go. What do you think about the Finn Walter stuff?
I think it's, you know, it's anticipation. It's something to look forward to, and it's probably not going to happen likely anytime soon that we know of. Maybe it does. I don't know, but it was well done. You saw some older matches from these guys at NXT, the UK takeover, and I'm really, really looking forward to that because not a lot of the WWE universe know the backstory between those two, and that's a new feud for us to watch and digest.
So then we get some looks at a new tag team that's debuted recently. Is Indusure? Is that right? Is that their name?
Yeah,
I think so. And they come in and they basically have a squash against Everrise here. We see, but I mean, just a new tag team to kind of build up. They went after Riddle to kind of send a message early on, but a couple like monster tag team guys looks like kind of one of their new big heel teams.
Yeah, you know, I don't mind them. I'm okay with that. I like monster tag teams. You know, I like Malcolm Bivens. I love the work he did in ROH. I don't know about him with them. I understand why they were put together as a mouthpiece. These are, you know, assassins. They come in, blah, blah, blah. And so maybe it grows on me a little bit because I really like Malcolm Bivens and the guy's a talker. But right now it just kind of seems kind of forced a little bit. You know, maybe this is another one that needs a, you know, live audience behind it to get more of effect. But it'll grow on me. But it looks like that's probably your next NXT Tag Team Champions here pretty soon.
We then get Adam Cole cutting a promo. He's on vacation by the pool, and he's mocking the Velveteen Dream for beating Bobby Fish last week. And I mean, these two guys will have an unbelievable match when they throw it down. Oh
yeah, I mean, Adam Cole, one of my favorites, all-time favorites. You know, dating back,
the
indie days. Man, he was so good. As part of the Kingdom in ROH, and then comes over here at NXT, and this guy is so over. The NXT crowd love him, and then Velveteen Dream, you know, who doesn't like this guy? So when it's when they're teasing us, and when these guys work it, they're going to give us one hell of a match.
I don't think I know any wrestler, at least in this right now, who carries himself with more confidence than Adam Cole.
Oh, he's the best.
It just looks like, I mean, he walks into the room or like it's hard to not pay attention to him because he thinks so highly of himself. You could just tell the way he thinks, and he's an unbelievable talker. He can really go. I hope that eventually he'll get his big run, and maybe it's going to be when Triple H has to take over because
right.
Triple H will give it a push. I don't know if Vince ever will, but Triple H loves the guy, and I mean. He's great. He's been just amazing all since the very beginning of his time at NXT. Then we get basically the last hour of this match was another one of these that WWE did in the last few days. These filmed cinema matches that are not an actual live match, and this one was different from the Firefly Funhouse. It was more like the Boneyard match in that it was actually a match. They cut it around. If the Edge and Orton match would have been like this,
yes,
I think it would have been much, much better. I mean, this was, and I know a lot of people are kind of sick of seeing these guys. They've been in this feud for years now, and it's like some of their matches they're great. They're always great, but there are some times where you're like, this guy's got to be done now, and they keep kicking out, and they keep kicking out, and they keep kicking out. But this was like you're watching a great episode of TV for the last hour, of NXT, and it was really, really good. They're ripping up the ring. They're taking they're using all sorts of different weapons, the crutch, you name it. Candice comes out. She gets involved. She kicks Johnny in the balls, but then Johnny goes down. It looks like, what? Candice did this to Johnny? And then all of a sudden, she comes back out and she does it to Ciampa, and Johnny's got the cup on. She gave him the cup earlier, and he was wearing that. So there was just a little bit of everything in this match. There were so many little Easter eggs and nuggets to throw back to different matches or different things.
Oh, yeah.
From their feud all the way on. Like, this was basically a different version of the Firefly Funhouse in that it was doing the same thing, that they were showing all these spots. I mean, I like this a lot.
I did, and some of your younger folks that are listening, tune in to you. That's what G said every week. It won't remember. I thought this reminded me of the old two Clint Eastwood movies, Any Which Way But Loose and Every Which Way You Can. When he gets in these bar fights. And if you've never seen those two movies, Philo Beto, which is Clint Eastwood, he's a prize fighter. And he goes into these bars and he has these fights. In the main scene at the end of the movie, he has this one long, drawn-out guy that, the Black Widows have brought over from Florida to fight him. And it's just so well done. And it's just like surprises, just like, okay, it's over, and it's not. And then, as you mentioned, with Candice LeRae coming in, and I'm like, there's no way she turned on her man. There's no way. And I love Candice LeRae. Yeah. I loved her when she was with Joey Ryan on the indie scene, man, when they were the world's greatest tag team. It just, yeah, as you mentioned, if Edge and Orton, which went way, way too long, and I think commercials actually helped this one, and they just didn't go straight through with it. But, man, what a way to end that storyline. Just it was amazing. It had everything. It
was great. So Gargano gets the win, and they even slowly walk out to the car, just like gimping all the way. You're almost like, I kept waiting at the end, like somebody's gonna come and attack him right now, right?
Sure.
Something's happening, but it was good. It was like, this needed to be the end of that story. They could put a big bow on it, and those are two that I'm kind of curious where they go moving forward. Gargano and Ciampa, who are two who feel like they've done everything they needed to do in NXT, but would they get the same kind of attention, run, push, like love? Do they even want to come up?
Yeah, as you mentioned, neither one of them are probably, going to go after the NXT championship because they've been there, done that. So their next step would be to moving to Monday or Friday nights. And I think both of them would do better probably on Friday nights. The SmackDowns, I think they fit in more. Seems like Triple H's hand, even though it may not be true or not, is on Friday nights more than it is on Monday nights, and it all depends on how they get introduced. Do they wait until the big crowds come back into the arenas before these two, which, could be, weeks, months from now. I don't know, but, I'd like to see, either one or both on Friday nights on SmackDown.
Let's get over to the other Wednesday night show, All Elite Wrestling Dynamite. And this one, this was good all throughout because we had Jericho on commentary with Tony Schiavone, and so we're just getting like great Jericho stuff all throughout. And you know what? There was a lot of times he was bouncing back and forth. I think sometimes he was just having so much fun that he wasn't even playing heel. He wasn't even doing his heel stuff, and then he would kind of catch himself and then go like super heel on other things. Another time he mentioned one point he was gonna punch Cody's mom because she got him a lot, and Shivani was like, his mom? What you're gonna do? He's like, she got me last time, and which was just
I mean, that shows you right there. Do we need JR? And
I don't know. Yeah, I don't think so.
No, that was just so good last night. Just listening to those two go back and forth. I don't care what the match was. It was amazing.
No, it was
so entertaining.
It was great. We got Jake Roberts at the beginning, and anytime he speaks, we're all gonna listen.
Sure.
His promo level is unbelievable, and Jake's guy right now is Lance Archer, who came out and it's a super squash match for Archer against Alan Angels. Do you like what they're doing with Archer here?
Yeah, he's a Texas guy. He was a Texas indie scene guy for a long time. Then just blew up, literally, man. Went all over the world, New Japan. I mean, he was everywhere. And this is the correct route with him. It probably hurts a little bit with Jake not being able to be there and speak for him. But squash matches, that's the only thing they need to do with him for a while. But I like Lance. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Keep giving him some easy victories there.
Oh sure. Yeah.
The next match was a women's match versus with Britt Baker versus Kuroshita. And these ladies did well. They went for a little while, but the end Baker got busted open. She was just, which made her like post match promo really good because she's just bleeding down the fight, and she plays the crazy really, really well here.
Look, and she has gotten better and better and better, and it's so great that they have let her become what she really is. She's not the strongest in the ring. We all know that. And her to constantly remind us that she's smarter than us, she's better looking than us, she's a dentist. And, if that was probably one of her better matches, and if that blood doesn't happen at the end, no one's talking about that match at all. And now that means probably going to live in infamy, at least for the next couple of weeks. I thought it was amazing. And that promo was just, she better be glad she didn't touch my teeth. But even though she did, I could fix it because I'm a dentist. It was great. She's doing great in this role. Oh, yeah.
She is. She is. It's good. It's good. Like you said, it took a little bit to find the footing, and there she's really running with it now.
Oh, yeah.
It's good. Shida gets the win via pinfall, but this doesn't hurt Britt one bit.
No,
they're two kind of towards the top of the women's division as far as the contenders are concerned here. Then we have kind of a rundown, all of the rankings, and it's Excalibur going through all the different men's division, women's division, tags division, and then we get a recap of the feud with Moxley versus Hager. And you know what? This is as good of a job I think as anyone's done with Hager, as making him look legitimate, showing a lot of his MMA stuff, his training, introducing this stuff with his family, him talking about why he wants the title to win it for his family and stuff. His wife is smoking, So this was, I don't think he's going to win, but even hearing Moxley doing a good job trying to put him over, saying, this is a guy who could just, choke me out at any moment in the ring. He could lay me out. I could be asleep in a second. They're doing a good job. They're doing their best, making him seem like a contender. I think we both don't think he has a chance to win this title in any way, but this is as good, I think, as any company's done with Hager so far.
Yeah, look, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. I was down on Jake. I was down on this feud. I'm just like, I just can't get into it. Every time I see Jake, I just want to think we the people, Then he kind of gets lost as a sidekick a little bit with Jericho in the inner circle. Well, now he's kind of away from it a little bit, even though he's still in it. And what they did, that was one of their best promo pieces. That package, that what they did with Jake and Moxley, got me excited to see the match, because I'm telling you, before that on Wednesday night, that was something. Yeah, I'm going to watch it because I like Mox. Who doesn't want to see Mox work? But I thought it was one of their best video packages to date, and I'm actually looking forward to that match now, because you do get a backstory with Jake a little bit behind him, because he really doesn't talk a lot.
That's all you needed. Perfect. It's just like if he loses, fine. That this was good. This was a good build, and this was something that was easier for them to do right now. They needed to do something like this right now, and this was something that didn't have to take place inside of an arena with a bunch of fans. They were able to use footage and create footage, just probably going and filming him one-on-one. So, I thought this was well done for them, and I don't think Mox is going to lose, but no. We got to a match next with the best friends with Orange Cassidy. So, I mean, Orange Cassidy's in the mix, sign me up, versus Omega and his buddy Michael Nakazawa. And this was just like a lot of goof, a lot of shtick. Sure. Jericho was like dying laughing on commentary throughout this, because there were some like such goofy and bad spots, and Nakazawa but I mean, it was fun. Like it didn't bother me. It didn't offend me. It wasn't like unbelievably long, or it wasn't anything. It was funny. It was goofy for a little bit.
Yeah, and the ending when after post match when they all hug it out. Just imagine that arena full of people when Orange Cassidy brings them all together and we all get that big hug. Yeah, I was okay with that, and I anything Orange Cassidy does, I'm all in. But I was fine with the match. Great commentary. Great ending, and I love the hug it out segment to finish it off.
So Nakazawa and Kenny get the lose here. The best friends get the win via pinfall. We then get Brody Lee, the Exalted One. He is driving up to a building to meet some people. He's wearing a tie. The others are not. He calls them out for how they look. He said he wants to make every life he touches extraordinary, and he says how they look is important. He says to get their act together and to show them what they want. And then he tells the guy with the tie he has an opportunity, and he heads into the building. So they're at least this has been a little more consistent now. Over the first couple of weeks, it was like I wasn't sure which way they were going to push him, but they're definitely kind of running with this Vince thing almost, Yeah,
and they're making him something different than what he was in the WWE as this. Yes. He was kind of like this monster character with Bray Wyatt.
People always said like Bruiser Brody, that he was kind of that kind of a guy, and this is much different.
And they're dressing him up. They're letting him speak. He's intellectual. They're taking a jab at Vince, and they repackaged him. I love his gear. I'm glad we're not going to something that maybe he looked like in the E. But man, I like this guy, and I've liked what they've done. And again, you got to give kudos to those who have booked Brody Lee, because it has been perfect up until now.
We then throughout the show we got more. It was more the Moxley Hager stuff that was kind of like cut up throughout the show. Then we get the Matt Hardy. He's at the compound and he's responding to Jericho and his comments. And he said it was just typical broken Matt Hardy type stuff. He calls what's his new thing? What's his new vessel? What's the name of his
Vanguard?
Yeah, Vanguard 1. Yeah. Vanguard 1 is the but his I'll figure it out. I'll find it in a second. But this was funny stuff. Again, we're gonna get it looks like a Hardy Jericho, and it's gonna be he wants him to face him at the Hardy compound in the Elite Deletion.
Look, here's the thing. I said it before, said it already, and I'll say it again. If you look at one thing that didn't belong in TNA last night, or AEW on Wednesday night, as you watch the program, you kind of go, okay, the Matt Hardy broken gimmick. Do we still? I mean, is this the only thing that Matt Hardy's got left? Is this the only gimmick he can do now to be relevant? I'm okay with it because it's funny. but I was there when it was hot in TNA Impact. It was amazing then, and I'm sure this Elite Deletion match is going to be fantastic, and it's going to be full of his wife will be on there, Senor Benjamin will be on there. His kids, King Maxwell will probably get a moment in there, but I don't know. It just seems like it's out of place for me with AEW. It's neat, it's fun. I don't know how much longer I'm cool with the delete stuff in 2020 with AEW. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Like I said, I'm not, digging on Matt Hardy because I'm a huge Matt Hardy fan and I love this character. It just seems like we're past this now and we're having to bring it up again.
Yeah, we'll see how they go with it. It's like they had to pause it for a couple years and then bring it back, and sometimes it's not the right time or it doesn't necessarily fit. It's kind of sometimes forced into stories here and there. So we'll see if Matt's creativity and Jericho's. I mean, you put those two guys together, great minds. Hopefully they can come up with something really, really good. Then we got a Brody Lee squash. This was what we were expecting right now, just building him up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and again, love the ring gear. I do like it that I did see that AEW not only had a couple of the locker room out, on the front row, but they had a few more bystanders, around too to give it a more
Pineapple
interesting
Pete.
look. Yeah,
Pineapple
and again, Brody Lee, just the look of it, his finisher, everything about it. That guy's a bona fide star.
To close things out, we got the first match in the tournament for the TNT Championship, and it was Cody versus Shawn Spears. And this was one of Spears' better, and Jericho even said it. This was one of Spears' better appearances in AEW. He looked really good. This was a good, solid TV match. I don't think it was ever in doubt. We all kind of knew Cody was going to win, but they did do that spot where he was slammed onto like the ring. The barricade, and it looked like Cody was going to get counted out for a minute. He got back in the ring real quick late and was able to pick up the win. What was interesting about this match, he hit his finisher twice, Crossroads on Spears, and Spears kicks out. Cody ends up winning with a pin in a figure 4 leg lock, which I don't know if Jericho said it too. I don't know if I've seen that before. I just saw Bret Hart kick out of one in WrestleMania 10 when Owen did that to him. But
yeah. No, look, Shawn Spears, I liked him in the WWE.
Perfect
he just, Ty Dillinger just never could really get going. Then he comes over here, and that's one of the exciting signings, and then he kind of flops a little bit, not that he doesn't have it. And then, I think they kind of knew it, and okay, we'll put him on some AE Dark matches. And then he kind of disappears for a little while. And I don't think that was punishment. I just think that, okay, we know he's got it. Let's do something different. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity for him, kind of like Apollo Crews in his match on Monday night. This was a perfect opportunity for him to go one-on-one with Cody, one of the best, and we all knew Cody was going to win. But now let's see if this springboards Shawn Spears, up the ladder a little bit, and we can start taking him a little bit more serious. I don't think we need Tully Blanchard with him. I didn't understand that from the get-go. I didn't think that worked, so I thought that was bad, and I thought, that needs to stay away. Shawn Spears is good at what he does. He doesn't need to be a mouthpiece. He's kind of a wild card. Let him go, and I think this was the start, hopefully the start of something new, because Cody got the best of Shawn Spears.
Yeah, there's no reason why he can't be like a mid-card, like a contender heel for this title.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? For this TNT
sure.
title when it gets developed and when it gets out there, like there's no reason why he can't be like a nice mid-card heel and he kind of be like for some of your new baby faces as like a step on the way up, and he'll probably turn at some point and and get back to good because the fans like him and he's kind of got a good look to him. Yeah, this was good, man. This was a good match, and it was a really good Wednesday. And I was looking back, I think WWE actually, or NXT actually won in the ratings this week, I believe, right?
Yeah, I believe they were relatively close.
Really tight, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, both real good shows. Not really much negativity on either one of them. So, again, another solid week of, and maybe this is, pro wrestling's time to shine while everything else is on the shelf right now.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think there are probably some people that are tuning in and looking and kind of becoming fans again. I'm sure.
Sure, absolutely.
It was just from Saturday through. It has been a really good week for both nights of WrestleMania. I like some of the things they did on Monday Night Raw, and then we had a really, really strong Wednesday night with both of these shows. So, hey, you know what? We'll be negative and critical when we need to be. I don't think we had to be negative or critical about a whole heck of a lot this week.
No. And I think it continues to get stronger. And look, you got to give both companies credit. I know there's a lot of negativity. Why are these guys still working? You could spread this, you could spread that. Number one, they're not going to put anyone in. I don't care. I know people take shots at Vince McMahon. The show must go on, type stuff. But now's the time to get really, really creative and just think when it is time for fans to come back into these arenas, it's going to be exploding at both companies.
Chad, my man, thank you so much. We were able to cover a bunch of different stuff this week. What do you got going on next few days? Anything you working on? And then give us your plugs on social media.
Just kind of, we're at a holiday weekend coming up. We're at the first part of April, just kind of hoping that there's a finish line relatively soon with all this. I know a lot of people in a hurry to get back into some sort of normalcy, but at the Chad Cooper, both on Twitter and Instagram, you can find all my good happenings and good stuff there, my friend.
Koopa Loop, always a pleasure, buddy. We'll be talking to you again real soon. Thanks for coming and giving us some of your time.
You got it, Gino.
That's our good friend, Chad Cooper. Don't go anywhere. We're going to take you. A big thank you to Chad Cooper. A big thank you to Don August. A big thank you to Emily Gullikson. Talking racing, talking wrestling. And, right now, we'll give you any sports news that we have, anything to bring to you. We'll get some show recaps in. I'm going to talk a little Breaking Bad next week, and we can kind of recap the series a little bit and what's been happening in the final season. And, anything new on the Tiger King front, where there's supposed to be an episode dropping this week, which should be great. So we'll keep you updated on everything. Make sure if you can, head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcast, YouTube. Give us a nice subscribe, give us a rating and review. Share the show with your friends. Best of luck this weekend. Stay safe, stay smart, everyone. And Joey Cleveland will close this out with the That's What G Said theme song.